Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's full council meeting. We have a very busy agenda. I'm sure most of you had a chance to read it. There are some 27 questions, 6 motions. So if we want to finish tonight rather than early hours of Thursday morning, I suggest we keep ourselves to promptness and propriety, and hopefully we might leave here before 12. Do we have any apologies?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Harvey Jennings and Councillor Philip Hickson. Sorry, Hickson.
You had to struggle there, Councillor Barker, to get his name out then. Okay. Right. Are there any declarations of interest?
Mr. Mayor, motion 6. I declare an interest.
Mr. Mayor, motion 2 for myself. I work within the directorate structure at Derby Hospitals Trust that deals with the car parking, and also motion 4, my family links to the betting industry and previous employment in the industry as well.
Yes.
Motion 4, I also have connections in the betting industry within my family.
Yes, Councillor Kerr.
Motion 1, which relates to Rolls-Royce.
Councillor Webb.
Motion 1 again, personal, prejudicial and pecuniary interest in old money. It's a declaration of pecuniary interest under the new standards.
Well done, Councillor Webb. You managed to get that through.
Councillor Shanker.
Councillor Shanker.
As per Councillor Webb, Chair.
You've done all the hard work for him, Councillor Webb. Item 3 is the approval of the minutes of the meeting of the Council on 17th September. Do I have a proposer that we accept the minutes, please? Okay. Is that seconded? Good. Just out of interest, are there any against? Right, we come to announcements from myself, and we have 4. It is with regret that I have 3 deaths to report since we last met. Harry Mycroft has been a significant figure for many years in Derby's ex-service community through the Burma Star Association and as organiser of an annual remembrance event at Cheddington Park. Harry had also served for a number of years as councillor for Osmiston Ward. He will be sadly missed. We also have Barbara Smith, was a Civic Award winner in 2004 for her services to the Action for Children charity. Her sudden passing has been a shock to those who knew her. We can take comfort from the fact that she attended an investiture at Buckingham Palace early this year to receive her MBE and also managed a charity skydive at the age of 80. The third one is Gwen Sandhu. We will be remembered by long-serving members as a regular attender at council meetings, a frequent asker of questions, and a campaigner for cycling and environmental issues. Dorothy Skrychak emailed me earlier today to tell me of her passing. Can I ask you all, please, to stand for a minute as we remember Harry and Barbara and Gwen? Thank you, everyone. Be seated. My second announcement is more of a celebratory nature. In recent weeks, Councillors Higginbottom and Wood have both got married, not to each other, I might add. So, congratulations to Lisa and Neil and Robin and Andy, and best wishes for many happy years together from all of us.
Mr. Mayor, might I just respond on behalf of my husband and I that we had a tremendous day in this building, in this chamber. It lends itself to those occasions very, very well, and I hope we've set a precedent for a lot of other people to do the same. I want to thank particularly Phil O'Brien and the officers that helped us on that day. We had the caterers from downstairs. It just went so well. We were on a high for weeks, and I'd like to thank everybody for that. And, of course, for people of all political parties who helped us, but people of all political parties who voted in the House of Commons for the fact that I might now say my husband and I. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Robin. I hope whatever you put in them cakes was legal to keep you higher for a week. And also, being an ex-mayor, I'll let you off for not inviting me. Right, as I was about to say, the third announcement is procedural and concerns approval of Cabinet minutes. The Cabinet met last Wednesday, the day after the Council agenda was published. There are two recommendations from that meeting which need Council approval. These being minutes numbers 92/14, 98/14, and I intend to take those along with previous meeting recommendations at item 9 on the agenda. Document 9A was sent to all members last week and was published on the website with hard copies available in the chamber this evening. My final announcement is to inform you that item 12 on our agenda on related disciplinary matters has been withdrawn. Moving on to item 5 is to receive statements from members of the Council Cabinet. There are none. Item 6 is to receive questions from the public. We have 10, you'll be pleased to know, from 6 different questioners who I welcome to the chamber this evening. Questions and answers were published earlier today, and there is now an opportunity for supplementary questions, and I do mean supplementary, which must relate to the response given in the booklet distributed. There is no answer to question you, but it has now been distributed on a separate sheet. The first questionnaire, well known to all of us, Dorothy Skrytek. Do you have a supplementary question in relation to your first question and the answer from Councillor Afzal on recycling? That was quick.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Paper, cardboard, plastics, organics and calorifics, fossil fuel-based plastics resources, which people will now be forced to throw into the black bin as recycling collections are destroyed, and the Council procures 13,000 tonnes monthly for the incineration contract. This will increase emissions of particulates and nitrogen dioxide in the Sinfin designated air quality management area. Energos and Shanks made a presentation to the Climate Change Committee that the incinerator would emit 25% of the Waste Incineration Directive limits for nitrous oxides. However, we discovered they had also made a presentation to the Chartered Institute of Waste Management showing nitrous oxides of 60% of WID. How will...
Sorry, Dorothy, was that a question or a statement? We are dealing with supplementaries.
That was a lead-in to the question, Councillor.
As I said, we do want to go home on Wednesday night, not Thursday morning.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yes, here it is. How will Derby City Council inform the people of Derby about the fact that they are throwing recyclables, being forced to throw them into the black bin, adding to the pollution and increasing the carbon dioxide emissions, calculated by Enagos RRS Shanks to be 4.3 million tonnes over the 25-year lifespan? And when will air quality data be returned to the City Council website?
Councillor Afzal, I take it you got one of the supplementaries.
Good evening, Ms Giritek. Your question was about recycling paper, and at that time it was costing us over £207,000. The rest of your questions, I value your opinion, and I have to admire you for keep going, but I just wish you'd get the facts straight all the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dorothy. The next question is from Mr. Clump. Do you have a supplementary question in relation to the answer to your first question from Councillor Rawson on heritage preservation?
He's not here, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, well, if he's not here, he can't ask a supplementary. The next one is Mr. Marsden. Again, do you have a supplementary question in relation to your first question and answer from Councillor Afzal on City Point adoption?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Well, very nice of you. Fourth one, Mr. Kuss. Do you have a supplementary question in relation to your question and the answer from Councillor Afzal on Durban neighbourhood working?
No, thank you.
I wished all the questioners could be like that. No doubt, Mr. Bacon, you will have a supplementary question in relation to the answer from Councillor Banwaite on the Normanton Empowerment Team.
Talk about judging a book by its cover. I have got a supplementary question. Thank you very much. I didn't come last time, so I felt that I needed to. So thank you very much. Councillor Banwaite, thank you for your reply. My question doesn't ask what you're doing, it asks why you and others have failed to respond to the Normanton Empowerment Team on our 10-point plan. Considering Derby Labour on Twitter are now criticising the Normanton Empowerment Team members for not supporting a new 10-point plan that we haven't seen, why have you consistently failed to engage with us for over 4 months?
Councillor Banwaite.
Well, Mr Bacon, your assertion is completely incorrect. And as I could refer you back to the answer I've given, because that does actually answer that. But let me just, for the benefit of our fellow councillors and those in the gallery, to state for the record that immediately, well, while I was on annual leave, I was exchanging emails with the Normanton Empowerment Team, and I committed to a meeting, given the urgency that clearly that you were expressing. As soon as I was back from annual leave, Mr Bacon, as you recall, I arranged an urgent meeting. That was my first meeting from getting back from annual leave. And at that meeting, an action plan was drawn up. That action plan was agreed by every member of the Normanton Empowerment Team, and they were all present at the meeting. And we agreed that action plan, and that has been implemented. And let me tell you what's been implemented. And it is a long list. Clearance of contaminated and excess bins, introduction of a weekly black bin service and collection of side waste in specific streets of Normanton, frequent compactor days, alleyway clearance and gating, introduction of 2 new members of staff from the Roma and East European community to engage and educate new communities, targeted resident engagement and education, develop work with schools, local businesses, residents, landlords to work in partnership to keep our streets clean and tidy and enable education and engagement, targeted work with landlords to ensure both tenants and landlords are aware of their rights and responsibilities, introduction of an evening environmental patrol in the neighbourhood in working in partnership with the local police team. I'm sure you'll agree that is a first for Derby. Recruitment of street champions, information sessions for residents on environmental enforcement and evidence gathering. And finally, the second of 2 environmental enforcement officers recruited into the neighbourhood team to work more proactively and use enforcement powers. That was the plan that was agreed, that you agreed to, you committed to deliver in partnership with the Council, and we've achieved that.
Thank you, Mr. Bacon. Thank you, Councillor Banwaite, for that reply. Mr. Robinson, do you have a supplementary question in relation to your question and the answer you received from Councillor Russell on fossil fuel investments?
Thank you. My assumption is that the indirect investment will have a significant fossil fuel component. And therefore, we need to remember that investment in fossil fuels has an environmental impact, and that there's a great big push to stop investing in fossil fuels and fossil fuel funds and the fossil fuel industry. So my question is, given that the value of the fossil fuel holdings is likely to drop, will Derby therefore call upon the holding funds to sell that component before the share prices start wavering?
Mr. Russell.
Good evening, Mr. Robinson. Thank you for your supplementary question. Unfortunately, I'm just going to have to refer you to the original answer. The first line of the answer clearly says that Derby City Council does not directly invest in fossil fuel companies. So, unfortunately, I don't think your answer is answerable.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. I believe she has answered it. Dorothy, do you have a supplementary question in relation to your second question and answer from Councillor Afzal on environmental contamination?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Supplementary, that is.
Yes, thank you. High levels of methane on the hazardous waste incinerator site were not discovered during the W.S. Atkins report when the incinerator application was first put in. Yet the application for making the incinerator larger, higher and more polluting and noisy did have a report stating that high levels of methane were being vented to the atmosphere, as well as hexavalent chromium, which in its mobile form is highly toxic. Have workers at the site and residents, for example, been warned about this? And have the workers been warned about the high levels of mercury when it does start burning and starts burning the low-level energy light bulbs which people are now forced to throw into the black bin?
Thank you, Dorothy. That was short by your normal standards. Councillor Afzal.
Thank you again to Dorothy. And I'll refer you back to the original answer. Gave all the health and safety aspects are taken into account by our workers and our staff. And at the moment, everybody's safe and sound. Thank you.
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor. While I applaud the idea of the Cabinet on patrol, Cabinet engagement with the community, lack of video could be seen as a little bit of a lack of transparency. To that end, could we perhaps have another look at this? And, you know, video cameras, what, 150 quid? And that's peanuts when we spend £30,000 on the big question.
Thank you, Mr. Marsden. Councillor Benwaite.
Well, thank you, Mr. Marsden, for promoting several of our initiatives there. You got confused between Cabinet on Patrol and Cabinet out in the community. But Cabinet on Patrol is obviously where we as a leadership go into the communities and talk to residents on the doorstep. The first leadership, may I add, to do that since Chris Williamson was the leader of the council, now the MP for Derby North, I'm proud to say, Mr. Marsden. But in terms of the Cabinet out in the community, that was a tremendous success, an innovative scheme, fulfilling the commitments of this administration to be transparent and open and to take a complex and serious business of making complex decisions and taking this city forward that are normally held in this chamber out into the community. I have to say, Mr. Marsden, was a tremendous success. I'm not sure if you were there, by the way. I don't think I remember seeing you there. We had people there from all walks of life, We had young people there, teenagers there, from diverse backgrounds that have never been into this council building, that have never sat in the public gallery and seen a council cabinet meeting. That's how successful it was. We also had more people at that meeting than we've had in cabinet meetings over the last year. So it was a phenomenal success. And it's also pointing out that actually during that process, we've met the government's own guidelines about making sure that official council meetings are transparent and open. We have achieved our targets of making sure as many of those meetings as possible are webcast. So a tremendous success on every level. But I would certainly welcome you to come along to one of them to talk to the young people themselves that benefited from that session. And I'm proud to say we're able to contribute, take part, ask questions in a way they've never been able to do. And I myself, as leader of the council and chair of that meeting, took those questions. And I'm also proud to say, not that Councillor Russell isn't a great speaker, but when she's making points in this council chamber to her fellow cabinet members, it's a bit difficult to fire on all cylinders. But when Councillor Russell was answering questions at that meeting, a particular contribution received a round of applause from those young people. And that gives me great pride as a council leader, as part of that team, to see that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Benwaite. Mr Bacon, do you have a supplementary question in relation to your second question and the answer from Councillor Afzal on garden waste cost savings?
I have, thank you. Councillor Afzal, I engaged with you in follow-up emails regarding this situation before a formal complaint. So it must have been clear that no answers had been forthcoming. Why didn't you respond and act on this to address the situation?
Thank you, Mr Bacon. Councillor Afzal.
Good evening, Mr Bacon. As soon as we were made aware that the problem is, Mr Bacon, when you actually write emails, you fire them off, and there are so many questions in your email that we try to answer them, and we genuinely believe that we had answered your questions. But when it came about that we hadn't answered, we did apologise, and I hold my hand up and I'll make sure this does not occur again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Afzal. Can I thank our public questioners and just say to you, should you wish to remain for the remainder of what is going to be a lengthy meeting, you're welcome to do so, but can you please go into the public gallery? Mr Bacon, I wouldn't want to offend you in case your supplementary questions become longer, so I'll wait. Being a man on my word, I will wait till they get up. But then again, it's a long agenda, so we'll start. Item 7 is questions about Derbyshire Fire Authority or Derby Homes, and I'm pleased to say there are none. Item 8 is to receive questions from non-council cabinet members, and we have a matter of 17. So therefore, in order to sort of get home, well, before midnight, I would ask both the questioners and the answerers, please, to keep to propriety and to promptness. Thank you. Questions, answers were published earlier, so we will move to supplementaries, and we have the first one, my mate, Councillor Barker. Do you have a supplementary question in relation to the answer from Councillor Rawson on market stall holders? And remember, I called you mate.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, mate. Yes, I do have a supplementary. Councillor Rawson, thank you for your detailed answer, in actual fact, to my question. One of the things that remain outstanding, and I'm aware of what's going on in the background all the time, but there to my way of thinking, could possibly be some short-term wins here. One of them that my research has brought about is the fact that throughout the markets industry, the normal lead-in time from making an application to take a stall to, in actual fact, starting work on that stall is round about 5 to 7 weeks. My information from certainly the last 2 people that I'm aware of who've taken a stall in Derby Market is the fact that it's taken 7 months, not 7 weeks. Can you please take this into account and ensure that officers look at their proposals, look at their procedures in relation to this particular problem with the council officers?
Thank you, Councillor Barker. Councillor Rawson.
Thank you, Councillor Barker, for your question. I don't know the details of that specific case that you're referring to, or of the 2 cases that you actually mentioned, and I don't know if there were any extenuating circumstances in those particular cases. But if there weren't, then that is too long, and I'm more than happy to take up any individual cases and look at the reasons as to why that might have happened, with a view to obviously making sure that we do maximise the take-up of the units in our market stores. I'm more than happy to look into those individual cases if you'd like to pass the details on to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rawson. Councillor Davis, do you have a supplementary question in relation to the answer from Councillor Banwaite on sickness absence?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. Good evening, Councillor Banwaite. I put my glasses on, I can't see a thing. Yes. Thank you for the answer, which is about reviews, meetings and reports. But it is your responsibility under your portfolio to stop this alarming rate of increase in sickness days. Over the last 2 years it's been increasing, as sickness days alone average out to 49,263 days, which is 205 working years, or in other words 205 members off for a year each, staff off for a year each, and it costs the council £6,207,000, which would be better used in providing services rather than cutting them, or even reducing our council tax. So what are you going to actually physically do about it? Thank you.
Councillor Banwaite.
Well, Councillor Davis, clearly you want to drag them back into work when they're in a state of illness and sickness. That's not certainly the policy of this administration or of any sensible employer. The administration is working very hard. We have a clear policy in place to make sure that council employees that do find themselves unable to come to work due to an illness or sickness, we do have programmes in place, and we do work very closely with them. But the figures are skewed, may I add. There are a small minority of council employees that have been out on long-term sick for some very serious illnesses, and that unfortunately does skew those figures. I'm surprised you haven't picked that one up during your very basic research that you've conducted. And in terms of the costs, well, there is no direct cost to the council. We are talking about a number which is related to the loss of productivity, but as I say, there is no direct cost to the council. And I know that the Cabinet Member for Governance, Councillor Shanker, through the transformation programme, is involved in developing a series of proposals that will be integrated into health and wellbeing strategy in order to reduce levels of sickness further. But can I also finish that, the root causes of the figures of the number of council employees unfortunately finding themselves going on sick is a direct result of the government policy that both you and the Liberal Democrats have supported. The reality is, as a result of government cuts, there's been a reduction in service, there's been people that have had to leave the council house through voluntary redundancy, and that is going to get worse, unfortunately, And as a result, there is a considerably increased amount of pressure on those remaining employees. And that is a direct correlation between these figures and people having to, unfortunately, go off sick as a result of all sorts of pressure, whether they be skilled manual workers doing very difficult manual jobs, and as a result of that, there is extra workload within legal guidelines, of course. There's health risk assessment done, or our administrative staff having to do a considerable amount of more institutional and bureaucratic work to keep this administration, to keep this council functioning. So it is a direct result of the pressures that, Councillor Davis, you yourself are supporting. Now, let's be realistic. I'm glad you raised this question because there's a clear differential between the policy of this Labour-led council and yours. You would privatise services, you would slash services, you would put people out of work, and you would sell off this council. That is your policy. It's not something we support.
Stick to the question. Councillor Harwood, do you have a supplementary question in relation?
Councillor Russell, thank you for your answer to my question. However, I've got a supplementary. In view of the amount of debt owing to the council at the moment, which is over £10 million, what is being done to recover this? How old is it? And what is likely to be written off in view of the fact that in the last 2 years or so that you have been in charge of the council, you have already written over, or near enough, £400,000?
Thank you for your supplementary question, Councillor Harwood. And as a very eminent and well-respected member of the Audit and Accounts Committee, I'm sure you'll be trawling through those with a fine-tooth comb when you read the outturn reports at the end of the year. As you'll probably understand, this is a snapshot in time. This £10 million constitutes a great deal of money owed to the council from a long period of time. Some of this relates to a time frame of between 0 and 30 days for recovery, so well within our normal recovery periods. Between 0 and 60 days is the next period, and then 365 days plus. So it can be from a very short period of time, so it's not actually debt in the true sense, it's just outstanding payments that have not yet been made to the authority. Some of it is historical debt. And as you'll know, Councillor Harwood, we do chase all our historical debts, whether they be sundry or otherwise. And if you would like a breakdown of the information pertaining to these debts and any write-offs contained, I'm happy to provide that for you.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Councillor Holmes-Olsford, do you have a supplementary question in relation to the answer from Councillor Martin on the Derby Arena events?
I do, Mr Mayor. Thank you. In discussions with concert promoters so far, what have been the key issues and factors that have led to the lack of bookings in stark contrast to the predictions made by the Council that one concert a month would be held when the arena opened?
Councillor Martin.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Holmes, and for drawing to attention to the Council the fact that Derby City is about to launch early in the new year one of the most exciting venues and places that the city has seen for some time, and I'm sure we're all really looking forward to it. In relation to booking events at the arena and booking concerts, we're obviously trying to ensure that the programme is exciting, will be what Derby people want, and will run successfully when the arena is properly ready and up and running to take them. And so those have been the main considerations so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Keith, do you have a supplementary question in relation to the answer from Councillor Afzal on tree policy?
I do, Mr Mayor. Can I just say first, though, that I didn't realise that Simon Bacon was going to ask you a question about you not contacting him, but because I'm sorry to say that a Mickleover resident, Mr Walton, his name, and he didn't mind me using his name, has emailed you many times over several weeks with regard to significant issues with a tree close to his home in Wansfeld Close. Why have you completely failed either acknowledgement or reply to him? I say I'm sorry to ask you that, but could you give me the answer for that, please?
Councillor Afzal.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Keith. I have spoken to the gentleman safe. The officers went around to the scene, and I've also spoken to him about 2 or 3 days ago to let him know what a difficult job it is for our office to do regarding the policy, and we will look to do all we can. He got the answer from our officers that he was not happy with. You represented him, you were not happy with the answer either. Then he contacted me as the cabinet member to see if I could do anything different. I had a meeting with the officers and we tried to see if we could do something differently. 3 days after he sent me the email, the officers were actually out there in his close looking at the trees and to see if they could do anything differently, and they can't. And at the moment, recently spoken to him, like I've just told you, only about 2 or 3 days ago, I've assured the gentleman that we will try to make sure that his neighbours and himself try to stay safe and healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Afzal. Councillor Poulter, do you have a supplementary question in relation to the answer from Councillor Afzal on COPS data?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May not surprise you there. Yes, I do have a supplementary question. Can I just say that the answer concedes that you're unable to actually fully answer the question, but I'll pursue that with Councillor Afzal and the officers afterwards. But Councillor Afzal, this question was born out of concerns raised to me after a COPS carried out in Spondon, that the COPS was carried out in such a overtly political way that it gave them some cause for concern. I'm asking you, Councillor Afzal, what assurances can you give me and this Council that the data and information received as a result of COPS and neighbourhood walkabouts will not be, and I mean not be, misused in any way, shape or form in the run-up to May's election by any party in this Council? Thank you.
Good evening, Councillor Poulter. I remember that walkabout. You were there with us as well. There was nothing underhand about it. All we were doing was speaking to the local residents of Spondon. They're not any Labour councils in Spondon. The local Spondon councils were invited. All the information collated was kept by the officers. And that was to give this administration a clue as to what our priorities are, where we need to be spending money. You are fully aware of the unprecedented cuts your government is imposing upon our council. But this cabinet, it doesn't matter, Labour area, Liberal Democrat, Tory, we will talk to all the people, all the residents in this city matter. And as far as the data is concerned, it's not going to be used for political means, it's going to be used to address the issues of those residents. Thank you, Councillor Poulter.
Thank you, Councillor Afzal. Councillor Barker, do you have a supplementary question in relation to the answer from Councillor Rawson on market consultants?
I certainly do, yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Councillor Rawson, I note again your comprehensive reply, and having had the health check from NABMAR, I still fail to understand and ask why our professional officers, who have a considerable number of years' experience in markets administration, still feel that it is the need to commit this council to expenditure in relation to the way forward for our markets. Why is it necessary, when we are a member of a professional organisation, and have been for many years, and we have had the health check, which obviously gives us a direction in where we should be going? It just delays the inevitable process of the markets and causes considerable problems in relation to delays and the feeling for traders and for everybody else as to where the future is going.
Thank you, Councillor Barker. Councillor Rawson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Barker, for your question and your continued interest in the markets. I do think that it is important that any decision about the future of our markets is based on sound evidence. Any decision that is taken will have very long-term implications, and we do need to get that right. And in order to help us come to the right decision for the city, then we do need to take expert advice. The work that has been commissioned will advise us not only on market trends, but also future retail trends and shopping habits. So it's expertise which is much wider than just being specific to markets, and that is expertise that we don't have in the council. So that's the reason why we do need external support and advice on this occasion. Although I do note, Councillor Barker, as the National President of NABMAR, if you are offering to undertake the work at no charge to the Council, then I will, of course, be more than happy to take you up on your offer.
Thank you, Councillor Rawson. Don't be worried if you don't get many phone calls on that. Councillor Davis, do you have a supplementary question in relation to the answer from Councillor Banwaite on consultancy costs?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. Thank you for this table you've given me from April to July 2014, which is 627,000 for consultancy costs. But on top of that, I know you've got the Hay Group management, which you said at 1.2 million, and Empower isn't in there either. So does this mean that due to incompetence within the council and lack of experience and expertise, or the inability of our staff to do the work because of sickness, absence or other reasons, Derby City Council is now being run by consultants and agency workers as it cannot manage its own affairs? And Councillor Banwaite himself did say this is financial mismanagement of a catastrophic proportion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Banwaite.
You said it in 2010. I can email you the link. Okay.
Councillor Banwaite.
Well, I mean, you used some strong words there. I take it, just ask yourself that same question when you were in power. The consultancy spend was was nearly £1.5 million. So you need to ask a question of yourselves. Was that down to incompetence by Councillor Holmes, Councillor Poulter, who was on the Cabinet? I think Councillor Vaughan Williams was also on the Cabinet at the time. So was that incompetence? Now, I'm not going to defend that. I'll allow you to defend that. But in terms of the consultancy spend of this administration, the use of consultants becomes a necessity when it's absolutely essential. And the reality is this administration has embarked on a number of ambitious projects, a number of projects it's required to by law. I use job evaluation as one example of that. We've got a number of regeneration projects in the works. And when you undertake projects which aren't the normal operation of the council, we don't always have those skills in-house, it's necessary then to recruit those through consultants. Those consultants are brought in to do a specific job because they have specific skills and expertise that unfortunately we will not have, and we do not have the time to recruit them. And clearly it would not be a responsible council to recruit them and then to simply dispose of those employees once we brought them in. Now, it is the policy of this administration, this Labour administration, to be very careful with the use of consultants, because we do take the point that, and our unions, our comrades in the unions regularly make the point that where those skills do exist, we need to make sure we utilise them. That is the point I will certainly agree with you on. And that's why, as the leader of the council, I've set up the commission, which is chaired by one of our newly elected councillors, Councillor Lisa Eldred, because she has a tremendous amount of experience in this particular field. She has brought together a number of parties, our colleagues in the unions, council officers and external partners, to work towards a fair employment charter. So it is the policy of this administration that that where we do need the expertise, if we can bring them in-house and employ them, then we will do so. But one thing I'll make it absolutely clear, Councillor Davis, This administration will not stand still. We're ambitious for Derby. We've got a number of ambition projects. We've already started our district centres programme, and there'll be further announcements to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Banwaite. Councillor Harwood, do you have a supplementary question in relation to the answer from Councillor Banwaite on 0 hours contracts?
I have, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Banwaite, for your extensive answer, which is about as clear as a foggy day. The leader of your party at Westminster, Mr Miliband, stated that he condemned the employment of staff on 0 hour contracts. Do you agree with your leader? And if so, what are you doing regarding employees of Derby City Council who are on 0 contracts? Also, what are they being paid hourly and what are their pension arrangements?
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. That was about 3 supplementary questions rolled into one. Councillor Banwaite.
Yes, Mr Harwood. I mean, what hypocrisy. You are the very same councillor when you were in power and you announced job losses. I think you downplayed it. You said, am I correct in saying, you said 700 job losses isn't a lot. You also wrote an article in the paper in response to the outcry from those comments.
Can you answer my question and not go on to the old days? I'd like to get home before midnight as well.
Councillor Harwood, I'm made to ask these questions, not you. You've asked your supplementary question. Just calm down. Let Councillor Banwaite answer it. Otherwise, you'll be here and we'll be gone.
So you said 700 job losses wasn't a lot. You said that in the previous council chamber. You also, when criticised for those comments by a lot of concerned people, you talked about your own experience under austerity. You talked about eating oranges, I believe, and the inference being a lot of people were offended by that, felt that as a result of austerity, people should eat oranges. So I'd be interested to know whether you still think that the poor out there in my ward of Allington should be eating oranges every day. Yeah, you might think so. You obviously clearly don't like it when it's Upham, you know. So as a character in Dad's Army would say. Now, the reality is, Mr Mayor, you believe in 0 hour contracts. This administration does it. And let me clarify the policy. It is the policy of the Labour group that I'm proud to be the leader of. We don't believe in 0 hour contracts. We recognise that at times there will be workers that require a degree of flexibility and will opt for a 0 hour contract. And I'll give you an example. During the season of distributing polling cards, we do get a number of council staff that do volunteer and fully accept the fact that it is technically a 0 hour contract. But it is the policy of this Labour group, of the Labour Party, to eradicate 0 hour contracts for all the reasons that we know. Those on 0 hour contracts don't get the same rights, the same terms and conditions, the same employment rights as a full-time or part-time council employee on a permanent contract. That is unacceptable. I'm sure we'll all agree. But then if I refer you back to the answer I've given previously on the previous question, that's why I'm the first leader of the council to set up the commission chaired by Councillor Eldrick, and they have a meeting soon. They have a meeting this week. And we brought down round the table the unions in a way that you weren't able to do. You were at war with the unions. Councillor Holmes used to regularly stand up here and have a go at the unions. Well, he doesn't believe that employees should have representation. Well, those very union people, those very hard-working union representing the workforce, are sitting round the table with us in comradeship and in partnership, and we're working together, and I'm proud to say I will be announcing a fair employment charter in due course, and we will have achieved that in a way that you could only dream of.
Thank you, Councillor Banwaite. Actually, just as a side note to the rest of you asking these questions, if you've said things in the past that you're going to contradict today, don't be surprised if you get a very harsh lesson in terms of contradiction, so no need to shout afterwards. Councillor Holmes, do you have a supplementary question in relation to the answer from Councillor Rawson on public art installation?
Yes, I do, Mr Mayor. So, Councillor Rawson, you talk about positive media exposure and this artwork being excellent value for money. Well, I actually think you're being serious. I don't think you're being sarcastic. So, I would ask, have you actually been to Elveston and asked local residents? Because you might find that they completely disagree with you, because after all, they and other taxpayers of this city have actually paid for this artwork.
Councillor Rawson.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Holmes. As part of this particular scheme, and indeed all the other neighbourhood centre schemes that are coming forward, extensive consultation with the public is all part of the process. And I have to say that art is a very subjective thing. So whilst you, Councillor Holmes, may not particularly like an individual piece of art, and you may find members of the public who agree with you, you'll also find many members of the public who disagree with you, who do like it, and who do think that it's interesting and it brings a visual enhancement to that particular area. We know that Councillor Hickson in the past has said he doesn't think certain parts of the city are worth investing in. Well, this Labour administration certainly does think they are worth investing in.
Thank you, Councillor Rawson. Councillor Keith, do you have a supplementary question in relation to the answer from Councillor Afzal on neighbourhood funding and political priorities?
I do, Mr. Mayor. As part of the forthcoming budget proposals, is the Labour administration planning to further punish residents in non-Labour wards with more targeted funding cuts?
Strong words, Councillor.
Good evening again, Councillor Keith. I think you've got it wrong again. It is not this administration who's punishing anybody. It's your masters in Westminster. They're the ones who are imposing these cuts on us. We don't want to punish people. We want to work with us, and hopefully that's why we raised a big conversation. That's why we're out there talking to people. All you guys seem to be doing out there, you're here, you want to entertain the galleries, and you think it's a joke. It's not a joke. If you've got any real priorities, how you want us to do certain things, right, come up, give us an alternative. We have a duty to balance the budget. Why don't you work with us? Fair deal for Derby. Fair deal for Derby. You'll get a fair funding for Ward.
This is not a question and answer exchange session, just a supplementary. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Afzal. Councillor Holmes, do you have a supplementary question in relation to the answer from Councillor Afzal on grass cutting?
I do, Mr. Mayor. Leading to the 2014 local elections, this administration faced accusations that it targeted grass-cutting resources in Labour wards. Does the Cabinet member accept that, in the interest of transparency, allowing councillors to have sight of the cutting rota, as requested some months ago by Councillor Alison Holmes, but as yet not supplied by you as promised, would remove any suggestion that resources were being manipulated by the Labour Party for political purposes?
Hello, Matthew. You never cease to amaze me, Matthew. I think you must sit there at home all day. Instead of trying to do the right thing, all you want to do is have a go at this administration and try to attack us. We're all in it together, Matthew. Any grass verges, it affects the whole of our city. We've got investors who want to come in, who want to create jobs here, make this city a better place to live. But no, all you want to do is have a go. Well, Matthew, you're allowed to have a rota in Mickle, wherever you want it, we'll do it. Thank you. Sorry.
Answer to the supplementary. You can have a chat with Councillor Holmes afterwards. Councillor Poulter, do you have a supplementary question in relation to the answer from Councillor Afzal on brown bin savings?
I do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Mayor, can I just point out again the answer is incomplete. I'll pursue the full answer with the Cabinet member and with the officers following this meeting. But at least one thing, the answer does concede that this administration has failed to meet its targets in relation to savings on the brown bin, as was conceded at Cabinet meeting last week, up to £400,000 worth of extra pressures and lost savings as a result of this policy. Would the Cabinet member agree with me that this brown bin policy has failed miserably, not only by not meeting its targets, but that there has been a resounding, a ringing rejection of this administration's policy on brown bins, in that only 10%, that's 1 in 10 households in this city, have been forced by you to pay this tax? Is it the case, Councillor Afzal, that you've totally abandoned recycling in the city? Thank you,
Councillor.
Good evening again, Chris Poulter. No, I do not agree with you. We have a duty to set a balanced budget. We were trying to save £1.2 million. And if you look at your answer, we've saved £1 million. So it's like, look at your own family. You're going to do a budget. I'm going to spend so much on eating, so much on drinking, and so much buying clothes. The responsibility belongs to that one directorate, like one family. You might have... We've got nearly 13,000 people to save up to brown bins. They wanted brown bins collecting. You can see that in your figures. I don't know where you get your figures from, but let's work it out anyway. I'm quite happy to sit here and work it out with you now. But 13,000, 20,000 was predicted. But instead of trying to work with us, you guys went out of your way in an organised campaign telling people at Derby, don't sign up for the brown bin. Where's your responsibility gone then? I've got no problem with you guys being in the opposition, trying to expose us, trying to find out where we're going wrong. But you're making it very clear, Chris, where your loyalties lie. So let me answer your question. We have met that budget within the Neighbourhood Directorate. We managed to get to that 5 million. There were 13,000 people who signed up for that. 12,000 people signed up. 13,000 bins were collected. 12,000 at £40 each, Chris, works out 48,000. And you look at it, works out to £500,000. 1,000 times 20, 20,000, 480 and 20, £500,000. And if we've not got extra workers going out there, extra vans to collect all of that, then we're obviously not going to have that extra expenditure. So within the Neighbourhood Directorate, we've managed to contain that budget, in spite of you representing the people of Derby, but yet you're quite happy to get this council to honest knees. So sorry, Chris, I'm not having anything you've got to say. Thank you very much.
Councillor Paulson, a fixation with the bins continues. You have a supplementary question regarding the impact of the blue bin removal.
I do, thank you, Mr Mayor, and yet again another partial answer, which I'll pursue later. But at the end of the day, £30,000 is not an insignificant sum. This is for just 2 areas of the city, the extra cost to the taxpayer of the city. Recycling rates have fallen from an all-time high under us at 46% to already 38%, and it's only going one way, that's down. Is this another indication, a further signal that you and the Labour administration of this city have abandoned any effort to even maintain recycling rates in the city to anything like what they were, nationally strong results under our administration? Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Afzal.
Thank you again, Chris. The recent recycling figures, we're down from 45% last year to 43% to April 2013. But if you're collecting garden waste, Chris, it's a lot, 90% of it's water. It weighs a lot. So because we've stopped collecting garden waste, you've not helped by actively campaigning, telling people, please don't pay for the additional cost. When the going was good, this Labour administration, we could have the budget, we allowed people to have free garden waste. I've been out on the doorstep talking to people. They're quite happy to pay that £40 extra. And if all the people did that, our recycling figures would go up. And as far as our blue bins are concerned, our recycling figures are getting better and better. And for your information now, Councillor Poulter, and to the rest of your councillors, let me make it clear to you. You go out there into your communities, and if any of your residents wants an additional blue bin to improve our recycling figures, tell them to come and see me. Thank you.
Councillor Holmes, do you have a supplementary question in relation to the answer from Councillor Afzal on purple flag status?
I do, Mr Mayor. Look, I don't want to be cruel regarding the grasp of your brief, but from your reply, I understand what officers are going to do, but I would ask, what are you specifically going to do to retain Derby's purple flag?
Matthew, I'm going to do whatever it takes to retain that flag. There's 30 different things we have to do. But with the cuts we have to been imposed upon by your government, you're refusing to share our fair deal for Derby. I just wish we'd had the money not to do any of these cuts, but you seem to be quite happy to serve your masters in Westminster, yet you were elected to serve the people of Derby. You've forgotten that. You've forgotten your roots. You're a Derby resident. You live in Derby, your family lives here, but all you're worried about is cheap political point scoring and having a go all the time. The leaders invited you guys many times, come and work with us and let's try to find a solution. We will try all we can to try to save this council. Even you and your ministers at Westminster, I know what their agenda is, but not on our watch.
Thank you, Councillor Afzal. Councillor Poulter, do you have a supplementary question in relation to the answer from Councillor Afzal on residual waste delivery costs?
I do, Mr Mayor, yes. The answer to this one is slightly different in that this question has not been answered at all. But, and I'd remind Councillor Afzal, this is about residual black bin waste costs to landfill, not recycling or brown bins. It's about the amount of waste and cost of waste to landfill. Then it's a very simple question, really, and I'm just going to repeat it in simple terms so you can understand it. Because if the officers can't tell you what the answer is, I'm going to just give you the answer in the question in simple terms, and maybe you'll be able to answer me. Can you tell me what is the extra cost and tonnage of domestic black bin residual waste that's been put to landfill since the implementation of the brown bin charge?
Hello again, Chris. Let me make this simple for you as well. How do you expect our officers to go through every single black bin and start seeing how much grass is in there? Are you real?
Okay. Councillor Holmes, do you have a supplementary question in relation to the answer from Councillor Banwaite on Cabinet Research Officer post?
I do, Mr Mayor. So, will the Cabinet member concede that, as this is a taxpayer-funded role and is classed as politically restricted, that the individual hired, being a Labour Party member, owner of a previously aggressive political Twitter account called Derby City Labour, a regular political tweeter, Labour campaigner and blogger?
Councillor Holmes.
Point of order. Point of order. Point of order.
No,
I demand...
Can I take a... On what, exactly? Statement of fact, Mr Mayor.
Point of order.
Can you all stop shouting, please? We're having a
Mr Mayor.
discussion here that we're supposed to be professional. So if you want to ask questions, then you look towards me first, please. We're not having an exchange here.
Labour Party member.
Councillor Holmes, carry on and finish your question.
Point of order.
A Labour Party member, owner of a previously aggressive political Twitter account called Derby City Labour, regular political tweeter, Labour campaigner and blogger, a former Labour local election candidate and youth officer for Derby North constituency Labour Party. Is this not the most transparent choice you could have made?
Okay, can I... Mr Mayor, I would like to raise a point of order before I... Okay.
You will have to give us the CP policy.
CP 64.
CP 64.
Which rule does he say has been breached?
Sorry?
Which rule does Councillor Banway say has been breached?
Which rule do you think? Councillor Banwaite, you will have to answer that question.
Okay, I've been advised by the monitoring officer to raise my point of order in the supplementary answer. The particular individual you're talking about is not a Labour Party member. So you are wrong, and I urge you to apologise, retract that, otherwise we will be taking appropriate action.
My assumption was that he has to be to hold a formal Labour position, but if that's not the case, I retract that particular point. Thank you.
Right. Okay, right. Okay. Mr Mayor, before I answer that supplementary, because I do
Mr Mayor, point of order. Likely former Labour Party member.
Okay.
Can you all, Councillor Repton and the rest of you, we're not here to exchange friendship or otherwise. You're here to attend a meeting, so please direct your questions through us so that we can get on with it. If you want to stay here till 12 o'clock, you do so, but let us finish the meeting first.
Right, now that we've established that the individual we refer to is not a Labour Party member, and that is a fact, he should be provided the same respect and rights as any employee of this council. The reality is there are employees in this council that are members of all sorts of political parties, the Labour Party, the Liberal Democrat Party, probably the UKIP. We have had a question here from a member of the public that has connections with UKIP, and that is public as well. That is their democratic right to do that. The individual in question is in a politically restricted post and is not a member of any political party, and no rules have subsequently been breached. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Banwaite. We're moving on to item 9 now. And this is to consider minutes and recommendations from the Council Cabinet meetings on 1st of October, 22nd of October, 19th of November, requiring approval of Council. There are 4, and documents 9 and 9A are the minutes extracts. Now, this item is not an opportunity to ask questions about the core strategy. The minute requiring approval is for publication and submission for examination. Details were debated and decisions made at Cabinet. Does anyone wish to speak on 56/14 Derby core strategy? Councillor Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The point that I would wish to make on the core strategy is the soundness of that strategy. We are working with other local authorities as part of our housing management area, and I have doubts about the way that at least one of those authorities is working with regards to our core strategy. At a meeting on October the 15th at Ripley Town Hall, representations were made by local residents to the Amber Valley core strategy. Those representations were listened to, and as soon as the residents and campaigners had finished talking, a document was produced with recommendations on the 14 sites involved in that core strategy. One of those sites is in a neighbouring area to my ward, and I'll read the decision that was presented after residents had finished, so this had obviously been prepared before that meeting took place, and the decision was, as submitted, the proposed changes document and supporting information at the July Council meeting, the Council does not agree with the views of the statutory consultees opposing the inclusion of this site, as it believes that the points raised can be addressed by officers in line with national guidelines and regulations through a planning application process. Now, as I understand it, a core strategy is about identifying sites for development, not identifying sites or allowing other organisations to identify sites and then tell them, well, submit a planning application because we think you might get it. If this was done in Derby City Council at our planning committee, it would be called predetermination. A decision was made before all the consultees had been given an opportunity to make representation. That's the first point I wish to make. We then go on to the soundness of the decision making, and as part of our core strategy we are linking in with other areas across our borders. And one of the sites is a Grade 1 listed heritage site. And I have in front of me 3 legal rulings on heritage sites. And they all say that heritage sites should be given special importance and that those heritage sites should not be developed until other sites have been properly considered and that the decision is considered sound. Now, as regards our core strategy, I don't think that we as a City Council would want to give tacit approval to another authority that would not be working within the rules and regulations of planning policy frameworks that we would in this authority. So I am not against our core strategy, but what I am against is giving tacit approval to other authorities within our housing management area that would cause our city to be called into question with regarding planning policy. I have raised all these points with our planning officers. I have been promised a meeting with those officers in the near future so I can discuss these concerns. I will not stop our core strategy going forward for publication, but I would advise that we need to take sound cognizance of the information that I've presented to you this evening and that I've presented to officers prior to this meeting. We should not be seen as giving tacit approval to something that we do not believe is legally correct. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Webb. We note your concerns and we're quite happy to facilitate a meeting with the officers concerned for you. Well, if you don't want to speak, any one of you, I'm quite happy. But
No. I've got. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a point. I raised this. We had a discussion. I thank Councillor Rawson and officers for some correspondence we've had since the cabinet meeting on this. Very productive, and I thank him for that. The point I'd like to make now is the same, more or less, as the cabinet meeting that dealt with this. There was concerns raised. I raised concerns on behalf of residents and myself and my group with regards to the potential for delegated powers, if you like, to the cabinet member and senior officers or officer to make decisions on the core strategy at this very late stage. It was based on the assumption at the time that we may have to find 400 more houses to the 12,500 roughly that the core strategy currently details. I understand with conversations that I've had in Cabinet and since then that isn't the case anymore. The Inspectorate is highly likely now not to be looking for that increase in numbers. However, I would like to make the point that if that situation changes, it may be that Councillor Wilson would be able to cover this. If that situation changes and there is the need to make changes to the core strategy, especially in terms of allocation sites, preferred sites, numbers potentially increasing, that we focus on city living to ensure that we meet any particular increase that we may have to do, but also that full consultation will be carried out, certainly with ward councillors. It would be a big shame to get to this point after all of this consultation with many thousands of members of the public who had very strong views on this, to change this plan at a very late stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Again, your concerns are noted and we will be quite happy to facilitate a meeting if and when it's possible.
Councillor Kerr, I think, and then Councillor Wilson.
Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I was also looking at that point in question in recommendation 4, which is looking at possibility of further amendments. And it obviously says there minor amendments. And I just wanted to mention the two areas where I hope that there could be some thought given to change. They're both more administrative than major in terms of housing areas, but I thought that members ought to at least be cognizant of that. So the first one is relating to the need to try and encourage people not to be constantly driving, usually one person in a car. We know that all our arterial roads are congested, And we've already got some money from Section 106 agreements working with particularly businesses in the south side of the city to try and encourage people to look at alternatives, whether that's walking, cycling or taking the bus. But as I read it, there's nothing specific within the core strategy which is encouraging that money from developments can be used to encourage people in existing properties to be travelling more sustainably. We know that when people move in, not everybody in a new development is going to use a sustainable mode. Thousands of people need to use their car every day. And unless we encourage some of the existing people who can more easily move to using a bus or to cycle to do that, then our roads are just going to get more and more congested. So we need to provide that advice and support to existing residents, but it could be funded, I believe, from some of our new developments. And I just want to make sure that we're making it as easy as possible for our funding to be transferred from new developments into supporting people in existing developments. The second point relates to... God, I forget my second point was. Sorry, hang on. It was not... it stems from the last Cabinet meeting where we talked about funding being coming from our housing revenue account. No, not the housing revenue account. It's from the right to buy account, which can now be used to support affordable housing through affordable housing providers, and to encourage developers to look at that as a source of funding to ensure that we can have mixed tenure developments, and whether that, just to ask officers, whether that should also be included as a point within the core strategy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cadd. As previously said, your concerns are noted and there will be opportunities for you to have meetings with the relevant officers. Councillor Rawson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to respond to those points which have been made, first of all, Councillor Webb, who was referring to Amber Valley's core strategy rather than ours, and I take on board that as ward councillor he's got particular issues with that. However, it is for the government inspector to decide on the soundness or otherwise of Amber Valley's core strategy, and that is submitted separately. It is a completely separate document, completely separate process to the Derby City core strategy, it's not really for this authority to give approval or otherwise to Amber Valley, and that is for the government inspector to determine. I will reassure Councillor Webb that I'm sure officers will not put us in a position which is untenable in terms of planning regulations and planning law. Just in terms of Councillor Holmes' point, the numbers do change based on population estimates and the various different ways in which those are calculated. So the most recent statistics are helpful to us in that it looks like those 400 homes are not going to have to be found if the inspector accepts those particular figures. But I think the point about concentrating on city living, if we are required to find any additional housing numbers, is the right way to go, and I'd already had conversations with officers to say that that would be the preferred way of dealing with it if those circumstances arose. And just to respond to Councillor Kerr, in terms of public transport and affordable housing, those are extremely important priorities for this administration, and we will of course seek whatever funding we can to be able to promote public transport on new developments.
Thank you, Councillor Rawson. The next one is 83/14 medium-term financial strategy. Anybody wishing to speak on that? No? Jolly good. I'll move on before you change your mind. Does anyone wish to speak on 92/14 council tax charges on empty and unoccupied properties? Very good. Do I have a proposal that we approve the Cabinet minutes? Do I have a seconder?
Mr. Mayor, move as printed.
Seconded? Okay. Those in favour? Any against? Thank you. Item 10 is to consider a report on appointments to 3 locally based charities, and I am pleased to report that, as was requested the last time we made such appointments, there is some information about each nominee to inform our decisions. Does anyone wish to speak on them? Councillor Skelton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, indeed, there is some information, but there is also other information that council members may also like to know that's also in the public domain. With regard to point 3, Miss Diane Froggatt, I think it was worth saying to fellow councillors that at the launch of the big conversation in this very chamber, Ms Froggatt announced that she was actually going to stand for the Labour Party at the next local elections. Also, of course, what it doesn't say in the paperwork is that Mr James Shires is an employee of the Labour Party locally, which leads me to ask the question, really, does Mr Peter Chollerton share their political views?
Thank you, Councillor Skelton.
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Wood.
I serve on the Elizabeth Turner Trust and have done for many years, and James Shires has been a previous trustee, and this is a reappointment. I find him an excellent chap. It's fulfilling the duties of trustee. In fact, he's always so keen on insisting on what the original benefactor did that I called him a conservative. And he said, well, perhaps you're right. So it does work sometimes.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. We'll tell him about the unkind words you said about him. Councillor Bolton.
Yes, Mr Mayor, thank you. I can speak for Peter Chollerton, who has been proposed by the Wilmot, Gilbert and Beresford charity. He lives in Chaddesden. As you see from the appendices, he has Chaddesden at the heart of everything we do regarding this charity. And I'm a little bit confused as to the comments by Councillor Skelton. We're all here to benefit the citizens of Derby, irrespective of her sniping and backhandedness. And why are our comments so alluded to the 2 people regarding Elizabeth Turner and German Poll? Surely we are nominating people who are doing good for the community, are conscientious and attending meeting. What's the problem with that?
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Well, I didn't see a problem with that, but we'll carry on.
Sorry, Mr Mayor,
Councillor Davis, you don't have a problem, do you?
No, I'd just like to echo what Councillor Wood said. I'm on the Elizabeth Turner homes as well, and Mr James Shires actually calls me comrade, and I'm on his safe list apparently, so I'm pleased to have him back. Thank you.
Keep him off this.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. I'm a bit confused actually. I don't know if we're talking about the same James Shires here, but never mind. Right, right, there is nobody else. There are 3 recommendations. Do I have a proposal, please? Thank you. Is that seconded? Yep, good. Everybody's in favour?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Right, item 11 is to receive a report on the appointment of an independent board member to Derby Homes. Again, there is a brief biography of the nominee. Anybody wishes to speak? No, thank you. Those in favour? Yeah, I don't need to ask if there's any against. Item 12, you'll be pleased to know, has been withdrawn. Item 13 is to note a report of the Chief Executive detailing urgent non-executive decisions. Do I have a proposer? Thank you. Is that seconded? Those in favour? None against? Thank you again. Item 14 is to consider notices of motion, and we have, you'll be pleased to know, 6 of them. The first is to be proposed by Councillor Banwaite and seconded by Councillor Rawson. This is the...
We just need Councillor Shanker to leave.
I was just about to say... Councillor Webb gone?
Yes, they have. Councillor Kerr's gone as well.
Hurry up, Councillor Shanker. I said hurry up. Councillor Banwaite.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, this, I hope, is one of those unique opportunities in this council chamber for all the different parties to put aside their differences and rally together in an important cause, and that cause being in the defence and support of the workers of Rolls-Royce. Mr. Mayor, in 2011, when Councillor Hickson was a leader, and it's a shame Councillor Hickson isn't here today, I would have welcomed his advice and counsel and hopefully his support, but I'm pleased that Councillor Holmes hopefully will speak in his place. The then leader at the time, Councillor Hickson, similarly stood here and issued a rallying call, asked us all to put our party differences aside and to stand up for the workers of Bombardier when we heard the very shocking news that because of a government contract not issued to Bombardier, issued to Siemens, it signalled catastrophic job losses and impact on the local economy. But Mr. Mayor, under the leadership, the Labour leadership of Paul Bayliss at the time and Councillor Jones for the Liberal Democrats, we were all able to join together to support Councillor Hickson's rallying call, and the city came together with the support of the media, our external partners, and beyond that, it was not just about Derby, it was a regional campaign because it was going to have huge impact on also the supply chain, that we all came together and we fought a very strong and passionate campaign. And many of us had the privilege and honour to go to Parliament to speak to government ministers and to make our points. And I also know, unfortunately I wasn't at that meeting, that Councillor Hickson, in spite of making representations to a Conservative Secretary of State, I'm aware from the feedback that I received that he was very firm and very assertive. So even in that environment, he was standing up for the people of Derby and standing up for the workers of Bombardier and making representations on behalf of the city. So, Mr. Mayor, it is that kind of opportunity now we have to stand up for the workers of Rolls-Royce. Several weeks ago now, we all woke up to the devastating news that Rolls-Royce announcing up to 2,600 redundancies. They've said globally. Our concerns are, I have to say, it is obviously for the impact on the workers of Derby, but as a socialist I wouldn't welcome job losses anywhere in the world because I think there are brothers wherever they may be. But clearly our first priority is to the residents of Derby and to Rolls-Royce, our company. Now, Mr. Mayor, on the face of it, some would say, well, it's capitalism, it's a private company. But it's worth reminding ourselves that actually as a private company, the amount of government support it has received. Since 2001, Rolls-Royce have received government assistance totalling £430 million. That's according to the House of Commons Library. Some of it has been repayable on the sale of engine, but as you'll see from the figures published, between 2008 and 2013, the company's annual report and accounts list a total of £163 million in government grants. In 2001, the company received £250 million in support from the Department of Trade and Industry for the development of the Trent 600 and 900 engines. This sum was repayable through levies on sales of the final product, may I add, Mr. Mayor. Now, between 2018 and 2013, Rolls-Royce have received the following in government grants. And these figures are from the Rolls-Royce Annual Report and Accounts. In 2008, £25 million. In 2009, £31 million. 2010, £38 million. 2011, another £38 million. 2012, £10 million. 2013, £21 million. Rolls-Royce may be a private company to some, but it is a Derby company. It owes its success, its very existence, to this city, to this British government. They may be a global company, and I know they take great pride in saying that, but their umbilical cord, the centre of that, has always been in the city of Derby, and clearly, long may that continue. We have concerns, the unions have concerns, the workers have concerns, that these job losses are at such a level that it demands government intervention. Mr. Mayor, we can only speculate at this time, because Rolls-Royce have been very protective, understandably. They are in the middle of very sensitive negotiations with the unions and the workers. Many of us have friends and families there. Many of us will know how deeply concerned they are for their futures. Yes, there will be some at the top that it may be an opportunity for them to retire. Might be exactly fit in their life plans. There will be those that have only been in the company a short period. It might be an opportunity for them to change career. But there will be a large chunk in the middle, young people with families. And I have to say, Mr. Mayor, I'm not going to declare an interest as it's not needed, but my brother. But as I said, many of us have friends and family there who has a young family. Now, despite the fact that we hear that Jaguar are interested in poaching people like my brother and those workers that have been there maybe 10, 20 years, but still in the vibrancy of their careers, the reality is we don't want them to leave Derby. One, it would cause tremendous disruption for them and their families. They would have to take their families out of the local schools. But secondly, the impact on the local economy will be absolutely catastrophic. That is, potentially thousands of highly skilled workers not spending their hard-earned cash in our local businesses. It would be disastrous for the supply chain across the East Midlands. The impact, Mr. Mayor, would be on the same proportions as the concerns we echoed, that Councillor Hickson echoed when he was council leader with the terrible news about the plight that Bombardier found itself in. So, Mr. Mayor, this is a motion that I seek cross-party support for. It is to stir a debate, but it is, most importantly, to come up with some precise actions of what we need to do next. And what I'm calling on all councillors of this council chamber is to put our difference aside, to work together, to lobby national politicians, to lobby business leaders, to use all our contacts. And I know, when ministers have come up in the past, whether it's on brown bins, here's an opportunity to talk to ministers, Conservative ministers, Liberal Democrat ministers, and the Business Secretary, Vince Cable, and I know the Conservative group in this council chamber have those contacts. We ourselves will also, as a Labour group, will be making representations to Labour ministers, shadow ministers, because this is an issue that's not about Derby, it's not even about the future of the East Midlands, it's the future of British industry in our great country of Britain. So, Mr. Mayor, I can give this council chamber an assurance that this huge responsibility has fallen on my shoulders as leader of the council, that I will be seeking to make representations on behalf of the city, on behalf of the workers, on behalf of the unions, and I would like to think on behalf of this whole chamber by trying to secure a meeting with the senior executives at Rolls-Royce, and I would welcome as much support as I can receive. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Banwait, for that. Councillor Rawson.
Thank you. Can I formally second Mr. Mayor and reserve my right to speak?
Thank you. Is there anybody wishing to speak on it? Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it's worth highlighting that of a global aerospace workforce of around 31,000, I understand, as we know, 2,600 redundancies have been announced, and it's globally. I mention that fact not to make light of the situation, which is very serious, of course, but merely to better understand the context of what we face as a city. I'm happy to say, of course, that the Conservative Group does support this motion, as we agree with its overall good intentions. I understand that Rolls-Royce is going to be welcoming the support of Derby City Council, and they're already in dialogue with the UK Government, which is putting together a job retention group to look at what action can be taken at a local level. So that's very much welcomed. And it will also make use of a talent retention solution, which helps apparently with the redeployment of engineering and manufacturing talent, with the intention that they would work with a range of local stakeholders, including the council, again, which is very welcome. The group fully supports the intentions, and we hope we will be working with you to a positive solution.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Before I ask Councillor Titley to speak, just to say that if you are in agreement with what Councillor Van Weyt has said and what Councillor Holmes and no doubt from the Liberal Democrat, can we please keep this very brief? And Councillor Titley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I may not do so because for 35 years thereabouts I was an employee of that company, and for the last 10 years I was the staff convener at Rolls-Royce. And I do have a reasonable understanding, without blowing my own trumpet too much, of the business model. If I tell you in the 1990s, when we were developing the Trent engine, we were expending of the order of £1 million a week on the development of those engines, and we did that for 2 or 3 years, that gives you, I think, everybody a real feeling for how much money there is in this industry in terms of research and technology funding needed. One of the things I had the privilege to do when I was there over a period of about 10 years was to be involved from a union point of view, but actually quite joined at the hip with the company on this one in terms of lobbying for additional research and technology funding, which has, as has been reflected here, come through. And that's through successive governments as well, I'm bound to say. Now, that said, Rolls-Royce has now got large establishments in areas such as Singapore and North America, and several there, both in terms of design, manufacturing and build. And the differences between our national approach and the governments in those areas is quite simple. When you go as Rolls-Royce and ask for support in those areas, take Singapore, they will ensure that you get everything you need, I mean absolutely everything, including the school curriculum engineered, if you'll pardon the pun, towards your needs. I would argue, and this is a personal private view, that we don't do enough of that in this country. That's a whole separate debate. But we should recognise that we need to foster in our young people the need and desire to work in engineering and science more than we do, and in a coherent manner. So about talent retention, well, I actually worked on that insofar as we piloted the scheme in Derby, and we did it with funding from EMDA and European funding called a group called Midlands Engineering Redeployment Group. Quite a mouthful, but if you knew the guy who was the prime innovator of that, you wouldn't be surprised. Nice bloke. But I was one of the directors of that board. It ran for about 3 years, and it ran with national government with funding. We tried to get it rolled out nationally, which I'm bound to say was never taken up by the last government. This government has done it, and it put in money for a short period of time. Now the talent retention scheme is funded by private companies. For this to be effective, I would urge the Conservatives and their benches to go back and ask for national funding for that initiative, because if it's put in place, then it will happen, and it will happen quickly. If it was enacted as quickly as certain legislation has done recently, it would make a difference. I think the issue for the company, and bearing in mind 10 years ago the employees were roughly worldwide 39,000 and 25 in the UK, and I understand it's now 55 worldwide and 25 in the UK. The issue for the company and the employees is to make sure that we remain productive, and every effort is being made by the workforce to do that. I think what I would ask the Conservatives to do, bearing in mind they have the inside connection on this, is to go back, and I think the trade unions would welcome this, and ask the Prime Minister to further enunciate his offer in terms of setting up a task force, and also he promised additional fundings, monies towards anything that was needed to support the workforce and the company at this time. So I'd ask him to go and do that, because I'd like to understand, and more importantly, the current employees of Rolls-Royce, where that's coming from and how it will be supported, how Rolls-Royce will fit into this, and how the City Council can play its part. Clearly we're playing a very positive role in this, because we've raised the issue tonight quite rightly, and I welcome the leader doing that. So I think this really is a debate about where we secure these resources from going forward for the employees, and to that extent, if Rolls-Royce is at its core still in Derby, and I think it is, how we secure it for the future in here.
Thank you, Councillor Titley. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, of course we will be supporting this motion. I do have a slight edge on Councillor Titley, and I did 40 years working for this company before I retired. So I know he looks older than me, but actually I'm older than he is. Just a couple of points, Councillor Banwick. We will be happy to support anything you want to do, and we, on our behalf, will be contacting Dr Cable to see what can be done from there. Just to make sure you have painted a slightly black picture there. I don't think the supply chain will be too affected. Most of these people are in engineering, i.e. they're not procuring stuff in this area. It's still, I agree, it's nothing to minimise that. It's 2,600 people, although my information is that at least, no, not at least, possibly up to half of them will be contractors, mobile people who don't have much of a base in this area. So while I support everything you want to do, I urge you not to paint too black a picture to the public out there who are quite nervous. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Barker. Sorry, Carr. Councillor Graves.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just for clarity, the UKIP group support this motion.
Thank you. Just for clarity. To speak on it now.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to say most of what I wanted to say has been said, but in terms of going forward, we do need support from government, and I welcome the cross-party support that will make that more likely in terms of setting up a task force, and we do need funds to be able to provide help and support, retraining, whatever those engineers might need, and also in terms of working to attract other companies into Derby who may benefit from the skills of those very, very highly trained engineers. We'll certainly be working on that over the coming weeks, and cross-party support at government level will certainly be very much welcomed.
Thank you, Councillor Rawson. Councillor Banwick, would you like to sum up?
Yes, Mr Mayor. Just very briefly to say that the next step will be, I will ask the Chief Exec, I won't use the word instruct, but I'll ask the Chief Exec to arrange a meeting with the leaders of the other parties. That's obviously Councillor Graves, Councillor Jones and obviously Councillor Hickson, or any other representative they wish to send, and we will get together and obviously draw up a plan. And then we'll obviously keep the full council, we'll keep the city, and I know the media are obviously reporting as well. We'll keep the city informed about the specific actions that we'll undertake to make representations on behalf of Rolls-Royce workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Banwick. Our second motion for debate will be proposed. Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry about that. It's all right. It's been a long day. Right. Can we take this as a vote? Those in favour? Thank you. That is carried. Right, now we can go to the second motion.
Just need to get the other members back in the room.
We'll wait for Councillor Schenker and Councillor Webb.
And Councillor
Councillor Holmes, you are banished and not ostracised. You can come back later on. Everyone in place now for the second motion. It will be proposed by Councillor Graves, seconded by Councillor Wright. Councillor Graves.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I hope this too is another rare opportunity where the Council supports a common aim. Hospital car parking charges are a tax on the sick. The government of the day has always tried to find ways to alleviate itself from spending where it can, and inevitably this results on passing on such spending to differing groups. Hospital car park charges is a tax on the people that have to attend hospital. Patients are targeted who are often already under increased financial pressure, and that illness can bring with it. Car parking charges were allowed because it gave the hospital the opportunity to top up its income because the government refused to provide that necessary income for hospitals for protection of those who had to attend. The government of the day should provide enough money to fund the NHS properly. It is what the public want, and it is what the government of the day should do. Members should agree that it is ordinary people of the public that generally attend the NHS hospitals, and so these charges are aimed directly at those less able to pay. People that can afford private health care are those on the higher wage bracket. The odd thing is that the hospital charges are often free. Taxing the sick is fundamentally wrong. It affects those who have to be in hospital because of their health problems. No one really wants to go to hospital, and it's a time when people are at their most vulnerable. I know of instances where potential visitors are put off visiting because of the cost of parking. This does not help the patient, and those visits actually help with a speedy recovery. We also charge the staff to park, and I would ask, is this the right thing to do? Surely we value hospital staff and we all appreciate the work they do in the health system. So surely we should not charge them to come to work. Because this is exactly what car parking charges do. I don't pay car parking charges to come to work, and I don't think we should charge our care workers. It is common knowledge that hospital car parking charges in the East Midlands is relatively low compared to other parts of the country. That may be so, but the principle of charging is wrong, so should be changed. Figures show that the average hospital trust raises over £1 million of extra revenue each year, clearly showing that the aim of car parking charges is to raise money to fund the NHS. This means users of the hospital are paying twice, once through the normal taxation system and secondly through car parking charges. I would ask, how can that be justified? Can any government allow that to happen? Members may be aware that UKIP's position on the NHS is that a UKIP government will keep the NHS free to all residents, and that includes hospital car parking charges. And I commend this motion to Council, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Graves. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll try and keep this very brief. I'm only going to reiterate what most of Councillor Graves has said. But the parking charges at the Derby Royal Hospital have had a serious financial impact on myself, as I have... Well, it is. I've been seriously ill over the last few years, and I have to make many trips there for medication and tests and various other things. And at one time, spent at least 4 weeks in there at a vast cost in parking to my family. We can imagine how many other people suffer the same, that found themselves in the same or similar situation. This is a motion that is about the impact it has on all those that use the hospital or just visit their loved ones, their friends, their children, the elderly, the disabled. It seems no one escapes these charges. I have a quote, and it goes like this. My mum was very ill last year. We were at hospital a lot, from April till November, and we spent hundreds of pounds on parking. This should be the least of our worries when visiting loved ones. We cannot, in all honesty, keep charging these people such large parking fees, or indeed at all. We cannot continue to charge the very people that look after us and care for us, the cleaners, the nurses, who start shifts while we're all asleep. When dedicated staff such as these are asked to pay to park, instead of rewarding them for all their effort and compassion, the powers that be deduct £402 per year from their pay. Mr Mayor, that's why I support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Rapton.
Yeah, I have problems. I agree with the sentiment in terms of I want to see, as my party would want to see, nobody being charged when they go to the hospital. The problem is we see our hospitals going bankrupt at the present time because of lack of funding, and we also see the Derby Hospital struggling to balance its books. And what we see here is, like many UKIP policies, this seems superficially attractive, but also, like many UKIP policies, on closer examination, it's ill thought through on the back of one of Nigel Farage's fag packets. And whether or not it's on one of his fag packets, it seems a fag-end gimmick. Yeah. Always be aware of any politician that offers you easy solutions to complex problems. Yeah. What this motion doesn't deal with is what would happen to the hospital and people that rely on those services if 1.5 million was withdrawn by ending these charges. What Councillor Graves and his colleague don't say, would he be happy to see 50? That's 50 nurses made redundant to pay for it. We certainly wouldn't. But he hasn't come up with those because when you have to make sensible policies, you have to have them properly costed out and thought through and offer alternatives. But we don't have any alternatives. We just go for the superficial, trying to grandstand and win cheap votes. We also had UKIP previously suggesting that that people ought to be charged to go and see their GP. Then that was jettisoned. We then had Nigel Farage talking about, only 2 years ago, about having private insurance to pay for the health service. Now that's been jettisoned. It seems that, like most of their policies, they're half-baked, half-costed, and like my socks, are changed daily. But I think what we need to have is a serious debate, because we're not happy about hospital car parking charges, but we have to think about how you meet that 1.5 million gap. We would not be in favour of 50 nurses losing their jobs. We're on about funding our NHS properly. We're on about amalgamating health and adult care and making sure that people, wherever possible, are kept out of hospital and supported at home. And so I believe that my group will be coming forward with an amendment to this, because we agree with the principle, but not the way that it's actually delivered, because it isn't thought through, it's not costed, and you would have unintended consequences. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Repton. I'm sure the Labour group are grateful you change your socks every day. Councillor Ashburn.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The Royal Derby Hospital is located in Littleover, where I'm a councillor, so I'm rather speaking from that point of view. I do sympathise with the motion as it is, but there are some practical issues relating to Littleover, which I would comment on. The effect of eliminating vehicle parking charges in hospital car parks would be to persuade hospitals to use their land for buildings rather than for car parks. When I was a hospital governor, I had enough difficulties keeping the current 1,000 parking spaces in use when the additional teaching unit was recently introduced. If I thought that reducing car parking charges in the Royal Derby Hospital would pull more vehicles off the roads of Littleover, then I would support this motion. But the car park is pretty well full, more than 90% during visiting hours and a lot of the rest of the day. There is no more space to receive more vehicles. Indeed, one of the issues here would be if you had no parking charges, what would prevent people from simply using the hospital as a free park and ride? There are practical problems there. Current charges are free for the first 30 minutes and you can get an unlimited weekly pass for £10 a week. It is better to have enough spaces than none for patients, visitors and staff. I am sympathetic with the motion, but I think there are practical difficulties. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ashbourne. We have three more speakers, Councillor Higginbottom, Councillor Poulter and then Councillor Banwaite. Councillor Higginbottom.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm certainly not going to dismiss the motion just because it's UKIP. I think it's about time we stop dismissing things just because it was so-and-so who said it. There you go, I've said it. It doesn't say anything to me that's offensive. I'm not going to go into anything else that Nigel Farage has said, but what's on the table tonight does what it says on the tin. If two of the political parties have already said tonight, well, the sentiments are okay, where are your amendments to make it better? Where are your amendments tonight? If you really mean it, where are they? So I suggest you put an amendment forward and make it happen, and stop dismissing them when they come up with ideas that are reasonable.
Thank you, Councillor Higginbottom. Councillor Poulter. You can speak, Councillor Poulter.
I was just waiting for a bit of peace and quiet, Mr Mayor. Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. The Conservative Group cannot support this motion in its current form. It's flawed and inaccurate in very many ways. The Government have attempted to deal with this matter as far as they possibly can. The bottom line here is that car parking charges in hospitals are a matter for that NHS Trust. In August this year, the Minister gave advice, guidelines to the NHS Trust around the country, and his advice was that relatives with long-term patients should receive free or substantially reduced charges on car parks, and that pay on exit only should be applied, because in that way people only pay for the time that they're actually parked. It's already been referred to that the East Midlands is the lowest in the country in terms of hospital car parking charges, and further to that, Derby is lower than the East Midlands average. It's been referred to already. It's a £10 weekly unlimited charge for patients, for visitors. There's also a £25 monthly charge, which is available to family and friends of patients and relatives. And in fact, it was said earlier on that no one escapes this charge. Well, that's not true either. Blue badge holders have free parking at the hospital, and people on certain benefits can also obtain a refund in relation to hospital charges. And ultimately, after 5 o'clock and before 9 o'clock, charging the evening visiting is only £1, with the first 30 minutes free. So, you know, the Government has tried to address that. It's not within theirs, or in my argument, this Council's gift to be able to decide whether or not to charge for hospital parking. They are an independent NHS Trust. It's a matter for them. And in a way, I share Councillor Repton's concern that if the NHS Trust in Derby decided, and the costs are massive, overall something like £200 million, I think it's a year, across the country would be, these car parking charges would have to be subsidised. If that was taken away from patient care and treatment, I would have serious concerns, when a lot of the people, with those concessions and those built-in factors to try and ease the pain of parking, can actually afford that amount of money. Then we as a group will not be supporting this motion. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Poulter. Councillor Banwaite.
Mr Mayor, I think it was an excellent suggestion by Councillor Higginbottom. That's why I was typing away, you probably noticed. And lo and behold, I have an amendment, Mr Mayor. So if Mr Walsh can please circulate the amendment, I'm sure Councillor Graves will be pleased with its content, because, as I said, it does agree with the spirit and the principle of the argument that Councillor Graves has put. Clearly, the Tories believe in screwing every penny out of the people of Derby, and especially now they've done the welfare state. They've taken money off the poor and the weak, and now it's the relatives of the sick and needy. So the nasty party is true to form, Mr Mayor. But as I said, we'll get the amendment. I'm not actually speaking on the amendment yet, Mr Mayor.
Has everybody received the amendment? Yeah. Councillor Benway.
Mr Mayor, this amendment, I hope Councillor Groves will support that. It keeps with the spirit. But it goes much further.
Please, under CP 64. This motion is not anything like the original motion. My motion was about car parking charges. This is about the NHS per se, keeping it free. Mine is specifically about car parking charges, and I think this motion is wrong.
Changes the whole context of the motion. Robin, having spoken on the motion already.
Speak of the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Graves, we've had a look in the rules and it doesn't negate your original proposal, so I will allow it.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you to the monitoring officer for clarifying that. What this motion seeks to do is to get to the root cause of the issues, to address the real reason which forces our local hospital to introduce car parking charges. And that is, and you said it yourself, Councillor Graves, you used the words, the National Health Service should be properly funded. By inference, that basically means you believe that the National Service isn't properly funded. And, Councillor Graves, I agree with you. The Labour Group agrees with you. The Labour Party agrees with you. Anybody and everybody in the country that believes in public services, except if you're a Tory, believes that as well, that our public services are underfunded, Mr Mayor. So just to give you some stats, today the King's Fund Health think tank produced a report. That's an independent group, doesn't answer to any particular political party, has said that unless the National Health Service gets £2 billion more in next year, that this government will have no other choice but to seek wholesale privatisation. Clearly, they are setting this up to do exactly that, but at what cost? And let's talk about the cost. These are the government's own targets. They're accident and emergency referrals. That's the people going in for an emergency. Those targets have been missed. Those seeking cancer treatment, the target to be treated, that target has been missed, and it's been missed for the last 9 months. Those awaiting on an operation to be done in 18 weeks of referral, that target has been missed for the last 4 months. The reality is, and this is a fact, that until recently, for the last decade, especially under a previous Labour government, the National Health Service operated at a surplus. It is now in deficit position of £100 million. Mr Mayor, this has nothing to do with austerity. This has everything to do with the ideological position of the Tory party, Conservatives, Tories, the nasty party, call them what you want. They do not believe in public services. They are, I wouldn't use the word fattening, that's not appropriate. They're getting ready to break up and privatise the National Health Service, Mr Mayor. That is their plan. They want to do that before they leave office. I suppose if you're a Tory that doesn't believe in subsidising public services, you must, I can only assume they think they're bastions of socialism, public services. But to Labour members, to the Labour Party, to this country, at the heart of what Britain is about public service. The National Health Service is a great British institution. It was founded at a time of desperate need, when servicemen and women, people that have fought for their country, their families, wanting to rebuild a nation, politicians recognised that no longer was it acceptable that those people that had access to quality healthcare were just the rich, and that the vast majority of the country The working classes, the poor, were denied that. Politicians together from across parties, and I believe it was a Liberal, one of the founding fathers of the National Health Service, and I don't say that with any disgust. Even the Liberals share some principles of socialism. They came together with great Labour thinkers and they produced the great institution of the National Health Service. And it's remained a public service since its birth. But, Mr Mayor, this government is readying, preparing the National Health Service for destruction. Now, I'm proud to say that through the collection of signatures in support of a private member's bill by a Labour MP, particularly pleased with the response from members of Derby and council staff for the petition that was available in the council house. And I'm particularly proud to say, and he is mentioned in this motion, and I hope Councillor Graves, I know he often complains about Chris Williamson being mentioned in this chamber. I mean, we just factually said that the Member of Parliament for Derby North, my close friend and comrade, the former leader of the council, has led a passionate campaign at the RAM, joined by members of the Labour Party and unions and residents of the Derby, where we achieved a collection of signatures amounting to the figure of 16,442. That is the second largest collection of signatures on any campaigning issue in this council's history. The one topping was the one on Bombardier, and the one that came third was on children's centres. By the way, the bins thing they get obsessed about was about a few hundred, or was it 1,000? So it just shows you where their priorities lie. Bins are clearly more important than the National Health Service for them. So, Mr Mayor, I hope the group will support this amendment.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Banwait. I'm sure plenty of people are conscious about the time because that's why they keep shouting it. Councillor Graves.
I thought other people might be wanting to speak. Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's a little unfortunate that you've done this amendment because obviously, Mr Mayor, are you listening, Mr Mayor? Shall I sit down? Mr Mayor, you often castigate me. You had that wrong, Councillor Banway. You often castigate me for mentioning Chris Williamson, and yet here you are allowing a motion mentioning Chris Williamson. Do you not think that is a bit odd?
Councillor Graves, first and foremost, I didn't castigate you. I gave you what you deserved. But secondly, you referred to people here as little Chris Williamson, and I told you I would not accept personal insults. Now, I don't believe Councillor Banwait or anybody else in this chamber has insulted you or your party. So you need to get your facts right.
Okay, well, I do disagree with you, Mr Mayor, because I have mentioned Chris Williamson, and you have said that I shouldn't stop mentioning Chris Williamson. That's a fact. I accept your argument that I have called people Mini Chris.
Councillor Graves, I tell you what, tomorrow or any other time we can sit down and I can tell you I didn't say this and you can tell me I did. We'll do that tomorrow, but not tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Mr Mayor. We do have it on record. The unfortunate thing about this, Mr Mayor, is that the motion changes it from being a motion that everybody should support to, aren't we clever, the Labour Party? You know, you've collected all these petitions, signatures. I think that's great that you've collected them. Unfortunately, what you've not done is you've not explained to the electorate how you're going to save the NHS by keeping it free. The UKIP party, UKIP has actually done that.
Can you give order, please? Everybody deserves the right to speak freely.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. If I can just go over some of the points. Councillor Repton's quite wrong about charging for GP appointments. It was actually a Labour peer that presented it to government. Councillor Ashburner, I was a little surprised that you actually want your argument for not giving free car parking charges is because they're full. It's the principle that people are being charged while they're sick. And Councillor Poulter, you approve car parking charges for hospitals. I'm surprised. I'm absolutely surprised that you support that. It is a bit strange. However, you were right about one thing, and that is the cost of £200 million a year. Now, coming back to Councillor Repton, who thinks if you don't know, we can't add up. The government figures show that health tourism costs the NHS £2 billion a year. As far as my maths were concerned, 200 million, if we sort out health tourism, we can actually pay for the car parking charges of £200 million a year. It's only a fraction. The unfortunate thing about this being now Labour-orientated is that, unfortunately, the Labour Party have got some problems, and that is that they introduced the PFI schemes, causing huge debts for our hospitals. And you will be aware that the current coalition have been, are continuing that trend, and this has been described as crippling the trusts. So I find it very difficult that the Labour Party are trying to be, again, the hero, and yet they were the villain in the first place. It does make it very, very, very difficult to support this, this kind of wording within a motion. The other unfortunate thing is, under the coalition, there's now PF2, and the investors can actually expect an extra 15% higher rate of return than the original PFI. So I find the charges to the NHS and our trusts very, very difficult, and so I can't really support this motion, this amended motion, Mr. Mayor, because on the basis that it looks like the Labour Party are the heroes and everybody else are the villains, and it's just not the case.
Thank you, Councillor Graves. Councillor Poulter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This does not change the Conservative group, that is, view on this. At the end of the day, and just for Councillor Graves' information, there's no way I was supporting hospital charges. For me, it's the lesser of two evils. I would rather see a minimal charge for hospital parking than have it affect health services or for patients across the city. But we cannot support this amendment, as it's called. It's not an amendment, it's this change to this motion. It's becoming a habit of the Leader of the Council and the Labour group to hijack motions put to this Council and turn them to their own advantage and make a complete mockery of the system of motions to this Council. And this is no small example of that. At the end of the day, it bears no resemblance to the initial thrust of the motion, and as a result, we will not and cannot support the amendment.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'd just like to support Councillor Poulter on that argument.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor, CP 64. Mr. Mayor, I think the monitoring officer should be concerned about that statement. The monitoring officer of the Council, not of the Labour Party, not of me as leader, the monitoring officer of the Council has just read the motion, the amendment, and approved it. That it doesn't negate the spirit of the motion. So your accusation is false, and it goes against, contrary to the professional advice we received. So I think you owe our monitoring officer an apology, and you should retract that. And, Councillor Poulter, you should be an ex-copper. Allegedly, you're a gentleman. So I think do the honourable thing and retract that, because you've just said that the monitoring officer is wrong. Where's your evidence?
Point of order.
You were a beat Bobby on the streets. You weren't a lawyer. That's my understanding.
Point of order under CP 64. I stand by what I said. At the end of the day, in my opinion, this changes the whole thrust of the motion. It's what you've done before, what you will no doubt continue to do again. Maybe you should have thought about putting a motion on the NHS rather than hijacking somebody else's. And if you continue with this policy of hijacking motions, turning them on their head and using them for your own benefit, the public will get to know that, and we will keep highlighting that fact.
Thank you, Councillor Poulter. Councillor Higginbottom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I shan't be supporting the amendment either. I'll just stop speaking, Mr. Mayor, till you call them to order, if that's okay, if you're listening. Pardon?
Carry on, Councillor Higginbottom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe the spirit of the people in Derby was held within that motion. I believe if people really wanted to support the spirit of that, an amendment would have been put forward before this evening. I also believe that this has been hijacked, but what I can't see is the point of the amendment. There is no action as a result of that amendment. It doesn't say we're going to do anything. It says what the Labour Party have done at the RAM, and it says what Chris Williamson's done. I don't know why you were offended by being called little Chris Williamson, surely that would be seen as a compliment. But I don't believe this added to the motion at all, and I think it's completely changed the spirit of what was meant in here tonight. And I'm very disappointed that the parties couldn't get together and actually say, well, we don't like that, but we can take parking as one separate part of the NHS and deal with that. I'm as I say, very disappointed.
Thank you, Councillor Higginbottom. Councillor Kerr.
I'm sorry, I must start with the same thing, which is the amendment, which is a really, really disappointing amendment. I agree, I have read through the Constitution, which we have a copy of along this desk, and the monitoring officer is correct, there is nothing wrong with it, except it goes completely against the spirit of debate in this chamber. It has turned one debate into a completely different debate, and that is not what people who had read the agenda would expect of us at this time. So I think it's a really poor way of managing something you didn't want to debate. But I also want to fill in a bit of background, because there has been a lot of misinformation provided about the motion that was discussed in Parliament last Friday. Because, and I'm not going to talk about it at length because it's not worth it here, but the privatisation in the NHS did not start in 2012. It started a lot longer ago, under Labour, through a series of different acts in, I think it was 1998, 2002 and 2006. And certainly my sister, who works in the NHS, was being asked to effectively bid to set up her own private business for one of the jobs that she was doing within the NHS. And that was 10 years ago. So it is not something this government has done. It was something that Labour was allowing, just as the PFI, and the PFI is something which was privatisation of the capital side and the service, some of the background service delivery of the NHS, also going on under Labour. Now, I'm not saying it was right, I'm not saying it was wrong, but it is not something this coalition government started. It was very clearly happening 10 years and more ago. But in terms of additional funding, and we've been talking about funding, whether that's for parking or for other things, the Liberal Democrats very much accept nationally that we need to have more money going into the NHS. And we have been pressing within government to say the autumn statement needs to bring forward another £1.5 billion for the NHS, and we have committed to £1 billion additional spending for the following 2 financial years. So, please Labour, please don't do these sorts of amendments in future. Let's debate something much closer to what we have on the order sheet.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Dinser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a bit rich from the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats talking about hijacking or changing amendments, because in control, when they had the vote and the power to sort of make decisions in here, that's exactly what used to happen from your side and from your side. So let's not have any lessons about hijacking emotions and amending them and sort of giving them a different focus. I personally believe that the amendment sticks to the spirit of the issue. The issue is about how people in this city are being damaged by the cost of living and the way they're doing things. And parking is one example. Councillor Graves, it is not as simple as that. It's not about one issue, it's a complex issue. And you talked about hospitals and the NHS putting charges up. And you're the one who's talking about getting rid of them for those particular areas of work and the income from it. So let's not get carried away by the idea of simple, straightforward, easily understood and sort of consensus in this chamber to get things moving. The issue is not a simple one, as the amendment quite clearly points out. Privatisation is the hidden agenda, which is not a secret, but a hidden agenda of the Conservatives. And unfortunately, the coalition in this particular government have unwittingly continued to support that in many, many different ways. It's not just the NHS. the public services, from local authorities to everything else, I can't mention police, but everything else, has been decimated. I'll give you one example which actually shows this hidden privatisation. The probation service, another public service, which has been split, decimated, and 3/4 of it is going to be privatised. That's the issue, and that's the risk, and that is a hidden agenda for the NHS. And I think we should be proud as a Labour Party, as a Labour group and a Labour Council here, that we stand up for anybody who's going to endanger public services such as the NHS and privatising them. We have to defend them in every point, every way, and this is one of them, where parking issues are not as simple as about parking, it's about the whole funding and the future of the NHS. So I support this amendment, and I think everybody else in this chamber should as well.
Thank you, Councillor Dinser. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This motion, amended or not, if we all voted for it, wouldn't make a scrap of difference to the parking charges at Derby Royal Hospital. If we all voted against it, it wouldn't make a scrap of difference to the charges at Derby Royal Hospital, because we do not control the car park charges at Derby Royal Hospital. We do control other parking charges, and this administration actually put up charges and for the very first time started charging disabled people to park in Derby City Council car parks. Of course, that is all forgotten. But we'd much rather talk about something that we don't control whatsoever. We could argue that this is a pious amendment, therefore. But it isn't pious because it actually has two purposes. One is that UKIP can tout its obnoxious, revolting idea that somebody is going to come by car all the way from another country and come to the centre of the country and park in Derby Royal Hospital, so we get a little bit of Farage nonsense there. But because he's an ex-Labour councillor, you'd think he'd know better, because what he's actually done, he's given the Labour Party a chance to voice its opinions on the health service, which again it doesn't control but loves to thump about. Why don't we get on with running the city instead of trying to run Rolls-Royce, instead of trying to run the NHS, and do the things that we do control and do them a damn sight better?
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Councillor Eldred.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very briefly, I just want to go back to this idea about the spirit of debate in this chamber. Now, I've not been coming to this chamber for very long, so forgive me if I seem naive, but part of the spirit of debate in this chamber is surely about showing up and being part of that debate. And actually, the reality is that we did have a motion on the NHS that was proposed by my colleague, Councillor Repton, that set out not only the problems as we see them within the NHS, but also started to set out a vision of how we see those problems could be overcome. And the Conservatives walked out of the room. So please do not lecture us on the spirit of debate in this chamber, because if you're not prepared to be here and be part of the debate in this chamber, I don't think you have the right to tell other people what that spirit actually is.
Thank you, Councillor Eldred. Councillor Rawson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The original motion is about funding of the NHS, of which car parking charges is just one aspect, and this amendment merely highlights that. So that is the reality of the amendment, Mr. Mayor. The only way to ensure that the NHS is properly funded and remains a publicly owned service, Mr. Mayor, is to vote Labour next May. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rawson, for that short burst. We have Councillor Nato now, and I hope he's equally short.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to be very brief. I'd just like to thank Councillor Wood for making common sense remarks there. So basically, once again, I'll say that it's not worth the paper that it's written on.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nato. Councillor Webb. Can I wake you up?
Mr. Mayor, I'm always awake in this chamber. No, and it's noticed. Can I say, Mr Mayor, that this is pathetic, absolutely pathetic. We're looking at a health service in this country that we, and I mean we, should all be proud of. Councillor Banwaite, please give me the courtesy of replying to a motion that you have put. I remained in this chamber at the last meeting and talked about the health service and the bits of it that have always been private. The doctors, the dentists, the other services that have always been private. There has always been private services in the health service. It's what keeps it afloat. David Cameron used the health service before his son died to get his son treatment. And he has defended it to the hilt on many occasions. We are in a period of austerity, whether you like it or not. And it was brought about by a Labour government that spent money. Here we go, yeah, here we go. Brought about by a Labour government that spent money that it didn't have. Yeah, you can talk about the same old story, Martin, but nothing to do with... No, it was to do with the bankers that were
we're not
running
having a
the
slanging match
country.
here, thank you.
It was to do with the bankers that were running the country. I may have got that wrong, but we'll call it that for the moment. The health service we can influence through the Health and Wellbeing Board in this city. If you want things changing in the health service, then we can do it collectively with our partners within the health service. And that's what we're intending to do. I set up the Health and Wellbeing Board when I was Cabinet member, and it has proved a great success in improving services for the citizens of this city. Other health services across the country may have different aspirations, but within Derby we do try and work together to achieve the best possible services for our citizens. And that's what we should all be here for today. Whether that service is produced privately, through the GP services, through dental services, etc., or whether it's through the public part of the service, through the NHS. We want the best service for the citizens of Derby, and this does a discredit to every single citizen because it does nothing to improve the services in this city. Get down with our partners, work together and deliver what we can as partners in a health consortium through the Health and Wellbeing Board to give better services to the citizens of this city. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Councillor Webb. There are no more speakers, so we will be going to the vote. Those in favour of the amendment? Those against? The amendment is carried and now becomes a substantive motion. Okay. If there's nobody else wants to speak on this. Councillor Graves, you have the right to sum up.
Okay, I think you're quite wrong there, Mr Mayor, because it's not a motion that I support. I don't actually have to speak on it, so I'll move to the vote.
Those in favour of the amendment that is now the substantive vote. Those against it? That is carried. Right. Number 3.
We just need Councillor Holmes to come back.
We'll just wait for Councillor Holmes to come back in case he rushes off and leaves it there. Hurry up, Councillor Holmes, you can't get away that easily. Right. The third motion is proposed by Councillor Banwaite, seconded by Councillor Bayliss.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, it is a policy of this Labour group that believes that this council, that what's best for this city, for this council, for external partners, businesses, the community, the residents that we represent, that in the interest of this city, the Labour group policy is that this council should be operating on a 4-year electoral cycle, Mr Mayor. Derby is a great city, but we believe what holds this city back is the electoral cycle. There is so much more we can achieve, but unfortunately there are so much great things that we've been prevented from embarking on, Mr Mayor. Now, what this motion serves to do is to kick-start a process whose guidelines are set out for a consultation with the whole city to state the case of moving to a 4-year electoral cycle. We are one of 2 local authorities in the East Midlands area that now operate on a yearly electoral cycle, and then we have obviously the fallow year. All of the councils have seen the sense, then they now operate on a 4-year term because they recognise the benefits on delivering strategic improvements in implementing solutions to some of the biggest challenges that our cities face. And just to list some of the disadvantages of the current electoral cycle, and I believe Councillor Bayliss will also want to talk about some of the advantages of moving on to 4-year elections. But certainly in terms of some of the disadvantages of the current system, if I may list them, Mr Mayor, briefly. The current system does not provide political stability and is unpopular with the business community. It is not possible to deliver infrastructure or regeneration projects within a year. Since 2002, there have been 6 different leaders with a number of different combinations of political control. Mixed wards can lead to tensions over different party policies. Political groups are always campaigning, and there is a danger of voter fatigue. After a change of control, a new administration is stuck with the previous administration's budget, and there is an annual disruption to the work programme, and it is not easy to implement important but sometimes unpopular policies, Mr Mayor. Now, it's worth reminding this council chamber and the city that when this has been discussed by Overview and Scrutiny, the previous Overview and Scrutiny work did not come to any conclusion. It was left very much hanging in the air. So what we would, through our motion, propose is that we start that piece of work through Overview and Scrutiny, and they facilitate consultation with the whole city. And finally, Mr Mayor, may I remind the position of the various groups, and hopefully, unless it's changed, Councillor Holmes would back that. Councillor Hickson has gone on record when the Derby Telegraph, who are in favour of a 4-year electoral cycle for the very reasons I've stated. Councillor Hickson, when interviewed, responded by saying that he doesn't have a particular view on it at that moment in time, and that when the vote comes, whenever that may be, he would enable a free vote. In other words, he will allow the Conservative councillors to exercise their own individual conscience and vote accordingly. I hope that Councillor Hickson is still, unless he's changed his mind on that, is going to allow the Conservative councillors to genuinely to come to an informed choice about the benefits of the change of the electoral cycle and vote accordingly. In terms of the Liberal Democrats, I've yet to hear back from Councillor Jones. I had a meeting with her. I'm pleased to say she did take up my offer to work together. I had besides having a cup of tea and some frank exchange of views on a few things, I did put it to Councillor Jones that this was in the interests of the City of Derby. I explained the benefits. I also said to Councillor Jones that I would be willing to make an offer to the Labour group, on way of how we can strike a deal that was acceptable to both groups. But Councillor Jones has not got back to me. I have to say that is very frustrating. Having made an offer to work with the Liberal Democrats, I know they often talk about working together, that Councillor Jones has not responded. I've not had a dicky bird back. I've not had a conversation in the corridor in passing. I've not had an email. I've had absolutely nothing back, which absolutely, I'm surprised. I'm actually stunned by that. I would hope she's still reflecting on that meeting and that she's still in lengthy negotiations with a very tiny group. But I can't imagine it takes a great deal to get round the very few handful of members they now have. So, Mr Mayor, we don't know what the Liberal Democrats believe, what their policy position is on this. We know what the Conservatives have said in the past. So all I would say to this council chamber, to all councillors, is this Labour group believes it's important to Derby. Let's have the debate. Let's get over the scrutiny to bring in all the information, to bring in the external partners, to talk to the business community, hear what they've got to say, to talk to the community groups, to talk to the external partners out there, to talk to the voluntary sector. From what I can see, from the conversations I've had, they are crying out for change. They are sick and fed up with the merry-go-round that we seem to have with the change of administrations. This city needs stable leadership, Mr Mayor. And can I also put it on the record that my views on this, sometimes we are at a stage now that, obviously my preferred preference would always be for Labour to be in control of this authority, but as a Derby resident, I've got to the stage, well, I kind of don't care sometimes. I just want an administration to be in power over a reasonable period, to have a mandate, a manifesto that you can put to the electorate, to be democratically elected in on, and then go ahead and deliver it. And do you know what? We could work with that in opposition. And just to prove the point, when Councillor Jennings, and he's unfortunately not here today, as Councillor Jennings will recall, when he became leader of the council, I phoned him up within a matter of days. I shared with him a personal view, and I said to Councillor Jennings that I explained the reasons, the benefits of a four-year electoral cycle, and I said to Councillor Jennings, you have an opportunity to be in power for at least 4 years. I would help you to achieve that. I said I would go back to the Labour group, and I'm prepared to make that case for a move to a 4-year electoral cycle. That is a fact, and I did say that to Councillor Jennings, because it's got to a stage that we have to look beyond our political interests sometimes. Derby is crying out for change. It needs stable leadership. That's got to be right for Derby. Clearly other councils have recognised that and have made that change. So, Mr Mayor, I do hope that the council chamber, I'm not asking you to make your minds up today. All we're trying to do is kick-start the process through this motion, and then let's get over your scrutiny. We've got a good group of cross-party councillors there. But once we start that process, we have to do it much different than it's been done before. Let's get the business community in. Let's get the entrepreneurs of this city in. Let's get the cricket club in. Let's get the football club in. Let's talk to these people. Let's find out what their views are. And I'm confident they would agree with us. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Banwaite. Councillor Bayliss.
Reserve my right to speak, Mr Mayor. I'll speak later.
Thank you, Councillor Bayliss. Councillor Higginbottom.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I'm absolutely delighted. As I said when Councillor Bayliss, as the then leader of the Labour group, I was really pleased that you caught on to the for Derby commitment to an all-out election, a 4-yearly cycle. I couldn't agree more with what Councillor Banwaite has said about the strategic direction of the city. and what an all-out election would bring. I don't know what we've been hanging around at, though. We did do, through scrutiny management, we did a topic review, and ultimately there wasn't the will at that point to discuss that issue. We were advised by external partners, experts, that we should be looking at the all-out election, and we've dragged our heels, to be perfectly honest. Let's crack on with it now and drive the city forward.
Thank you, Councillor Higginbotham. Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I can say that the Conservatives' position on this is that we don't have a position. I can confirm that really little has changed since Councillor Hickson said that the group views are very mixed, and so they are, and still are. I'm sure that ward councillors in the same ward sometimes disagree on this issue as to whether it's thirds or all out. And so we can confirm that it will be a free vote. And I would hope that the Labour leadership would also offer their members a free vote, because I think that's the way to approach this issue. Everyone has a very different opinion over what they think should be the future constitutional arrangements of the council. But I think the other thing to remember here is that, well, two things really. Councillor Banwaite talks about stability and leadership. Well, that's not guaranteed if you go all out, as we saw him stab his previous leader in the back to take control himself. So, you know, that's worth remembering. And also, we've got to remember, actually, that the public decide who runs this council and for how long. So let's not forget what their opinion is on this, and we need to look at that and listen and make a decision, or an informed decision, based on all those factors. So my group will be supporting this motion because it's asking to take it to scrutiny. And I've got no problem with that, and I'm sure none of my members have a problem with that. Let's have a look at this. It doesn't lock us into all out, because that needs to be dealt with on a free, hopefully on a free vote basis across the whole chamber at some time in the future. So I welcome this. Mr Mayor, could I suggest under CP 59 that the question is now put and we move to the vote? Thank you.
In view of the fact that there seems to be a general agreement on this, can we move to the vote?
Councillor Bayliss has reserved his right to speak just before you move to the vote, though. So, Councillor Bayliss, it's your gift about allowing Councillor Bayliss.
Councillor Bayliss, would you like to speak before we go to the vote?
Yes, I would, Mr Mayor. I do think this is a matter of governance, and Councillor Holmes is right in some respects. This transcends both party political differences and personal differences, which is why I've agreed to speak on this motion. I can tell people, as the leader of the council, to be credible in front of certainly civil servants and your peers at core and key city meetings, you need to have a clear mandate. When funding streams are available, government, no matter what their colour is, wants to see somebody able to deliver it. And when they look at Derby in terms of its political position, and they compare us with Nottingham and Leicester, they realise that in Nottingham and Leicester they've got somebody there for 4 years, and when they say they can deliver something, they will. And they're not sure about Derby. Now, Derby is a fantastic city, best manufacturing city in the UK, one of the exemplars in the world. Now, we need to make sure that we are competing not only with cities across the world, but with our cities in terms of governance across the UK. And this is absolutely key and vital that we have this debate and this vote, because there are people out there who quite rightly say that they want to see stability in this city, they want to see key governance, and this isn't about one political party, because from time to time it will change, and Councillor Holmes is right on that. The people of the City of Derby will decide. But I think for us, it is absolutely clear to me that we need to make sure we have that discussion, we need to make sure we have a consensus, and there will be difficult political decisions to make. It will be difficult for some parties to get 51 candidates, and I know that, but it's part of the debate. If we want to make sure we are fit for purpose, we need to have that debate, and it enables us all to focus on two things: the election and, separately, the governance of this city, because no matter what happens next year, pressure will still be on this council's budget going down, and that's the direction of travel for some time yet. and we need to be able to make those decisions with the confidence that we can deliver on some of those things that will be unpopular. Now, I commend this to Council and hope we can have a debate and a voting within the year on this very subject. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Bayliss. Can we now move to the vote? Those in favour of the motion? Okay. Any against? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to our fourth motion. It's proposed by Councillor Kerr, seconded by Councillor Ashburner, and I believe we have two people who want to leave.
And Councillor Shanker is just leaving as well.
But I think they're all using this as an excuse to get out of here. Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This motion is about something that we would like to have more control over. I think every ward will have betting shops within their areas. We've got a lot more of them now than we had 10 years ago. And one of the reasons why this has happened is because of the fixed odds betting terminals that we have up to 4 in every betting shop. So this motion brings together two things. One is the concern about the numbers and the impact of betting shops and the addictive nature of the fixed odds betting terminals, the gambling machines that we have in them now. And the second thing is the use of the Sustainable Communities Act, which we actually had reference to at our last full council meeting as well. The situation at the moment is that something like half the profit from betting shops comes from these electronic gambling machines. And people can spend money on those at the rate of £100 every 20 seconds. And people who are doing that, and people who are spending less money than that as well, find it an extremely addictive pursuit. And the reason, and because of that addiction, is why we're now getting so much of the profits from betting is from this actual gambling. It's this casino-type gambling in betting shops. There are more betting shops in deprived areas than in the wealthy areas, and clearly that is because that's where the people are feeding these machines. And we know that that isn't going to be good for our deprived areas because it means money is going out of those communities to the betting shop operators rather than staying to circulate within those communities. They've been called the crack cocaine of gambling, and they began in around 2002 when this sort of machine wasn't regulated at all. And when people started expressing concern about them, initially the industry said, oh, we'll regulate that, that's fine, we'll set our own rules. But it became very clear that this wasn't good enough, and in the 2005 Act they were brought under some sort of regulation, but still very much out of kilter with all the other sorts of gambling offers that there is in the high street. Most other machines you can only put into £2 or a maximum of £5. But here you can be spending £100 every 20 seconds. So there's been growing concern as the number of betting shops has gone up, more people are spending more money on these machines, and that we're actually not as badly hit in Derby as a number of local authorities. And Newham in London, the London Borough of Newham, are leading on saying local councils need to have more control over what happens and how these machines are used. There are broadly three ways probably that you can change this. You could reduce the stake from £100. You could increase the frequency so that it takes you longer to spend your money. You could reduce the number of machines in any given betting shop. And Newham has gone for the first one. They say they want to really bring down that stake from £100 a time to just £2 a time. Still be able to spend fairly often, but only at £2 rather than £100. One reason, there's obviously, I've mentioned some of the reasons for this already. There's the addiction. If you're spending money at that rate and the machine is stealing it from you, people get really angry and you get violence in the shops and you get violence in the community. And although it's poorly evidenced, there may well be more thieving going on for people to feed that addictive habit. But another element which is less obvious is money laundering. On average, when you put money into these machines, they actually give you 97% of it back again over time. So you may lose a lot, but you may also win some. If you're wanting to take some money that you've got from ill-gotten gains and you can feed it into this machine, you're only going to lose 3% on average. And that's not a bad rate of exchange to take this hot money into legitimate money that you've actually got a receipt for how you came by it. So it should cut down also on that money laundering element of what's going on. So Newham are planning to submit their proposal to the government under the Sustainable Communities Act to reduce from £100 to £2. They're planning to put that in this Friday. They've already got 92 councils signed up in support of them, and they include Nottingham, they include Leicester, they include Amber Valley. It's cross-party, it's across the country, and I hope that Derby will put its name on that list as well.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Ashbourne, would you like to speak?
I'll reserve my right to speak at a later time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ashbourne. Anybody else? Councillor Hazelgrave.
Thank you, as always, Mr Mayor, for allowing me to speak. I've listened carefully to Councillor Kerr's proposal and have looked also at the motion and find that it is of commendable intent, but feel that it could be helped by being slightly modified in order to command wider support. I wish to table an amendment. Mr Mayor, the original motion was presented as a thrust and sentiment which is worthy of wider support within the Chamber, and the amendment which I am proposing seeks to gain that wider support. The original motion fails to have regard for what has already transpired in terms of this Council's actions on this issue, namely the letter written by Councillor Paul Bayliss on the 24th of March as then Leader of the Council to the Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government, seeking the latter's agreement to a proposal by the City Council for a separate use class for betting shops under the Sustainable Communities Act. The amendment as tabled includes this and endows the original motion with some coherence in terms of the recent historical and ongoing stance and actions of this Council, and in no way, I would submit, changes either the sentiment or essential thrust of what was originally presented. The proposed amendment also streamlines references to various classes of fixed odds betting terminals and seeks to find a mechanism to cap the maximum stake on an FOBT in a betting shop in Derby at £2. I've also included a reference to families of gamblers in the amendment. Mr Mayor, you will no doubt be interested to know that Newham Council did some research as a background to their proposal, as outlined in the original motion, including a survey of fixed odds betting terminal gamblers, and the results are stark. 87% of those surveyed said fixed odds betting terminals were addictive. 62% said they played until their money was gone. 68% said that when they lose, they chase their losses. And 69% said that they still want to keep on gambling when they win. The last percentage gives further weight to the evidence that fixed odds betting terminals are addictive. I cannot give figures here for the number of gamblers surveyed who live with and supported their children, but it is worrying that parents who gamble on FOBTs are most likely spending much more than they can afford on these addictive machines, and that this will lead to hardship among those families. Mr Mayor, families in such a dire situation, where the children's food is effectively snatched from their mouths by a parent's or both parents' addictive gambling, could be resident in any part of the city, Alistair or Chaddesden, Mickleover or Normanton. I could go on. The issue is city-wide, and maybe councillors representing all parts of the city have had or have casework where this problem has been a significant factor. A city-wide problem requires a city-wide solution, Mr Mayor. The Council's attempt to establish a separate use class for betting, if successful, would be a significant step towards having these powers to regulate the proliferation of betting shops in any part of the city where it may be deemed detrimental to the communities surrounding them. This would show due regard for the petitions received from parts of the city. So this proposed amendment goes further than the motion it seeks to refine, as it makes clear that the City Council is proceeding along exactly the same lines as Newham Council and has been doing so for some time. The amendment looks outward to commend Newham, but also inward to Derby, and builds, I would hope, on the original motion in such a way as to make it more widely acceptable to the members of this chamber and therefore more likely to be adopted. So, Mr Mayor, by your gracious leave, I propose this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Lesgrave. Is there a seconder for that amendment? Thank you, Councillor Redfern. Would you like to speak on that? Or? Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on it? Oh, Councillor Kerr.
I've got no objection to the substantive change of this, but it does lose the very, very crucial thing, which is to write to Newham. It doesn't say in the amendment that we are going to write to Newham and support what they are trying to do. I don't mind if they're wanting to change. I'm very supportive of changing the planning situation. But we do need to say in the final sentence that we are writing to Newham to support their move through the Sustainable Communities Act.
Councillor Kerr, the amendment has been put forward.
So I'm asking the mover of the amendment to vary that, to make it clear that we are writing to Newham in support of their move through the Sustainable Communities Act.
Mayor, I'm totally happy to concede that, and I think it does do everything we want and brings in Lucy even closer.
With that amendment to the amendment, is everybody happy? Nobody wants to speak on it? Can we move to the vote? All those in favour? Any against? That's carried. But the amendment is now the substantive. Would you like to speak or sum up, Councillor Kerr or Councillor Ashburnham?
Can I just say I'd be very supportive of this, and thank you everybody. And I'm going to be getting some more information, I hope, from Newham. I'm going to ask officers, can they please write and get in touch first thing tomorrow morning, and I've got some contact details for them.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Now we're going to vote again on what we've just voted on. So everybody, those who are in favour of it, can you raise your hands, please? That's it, thank you. Any against? None. Thank you, that's carried. Right, we move on to motion number 5. This
Councillor Holmes back in and Councillor Schaefer.
no. Okay, moving on to motion 5. This one is proposed by Councillor Nater, seconded by Councillor Carr. Councillor Nater.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll be brief with this one. I'm so happy that Councillor Banway and the Cabinet members engage young people on the walkabouts in the city. Now's another opportunity for this chamber to do something for primary school age young people in the city. We talked about developments earlier on, housing core strategy. We've seen the amount of developments that go on. Sitting on the planning committee time and time again, I've raised the issue about primary schools and not enough places, or there will not be enough places in the future as well. So whether we admit or not, you know, we do need more primary school places. And children are having to travel further and further away from their localities. And I think particularly in the Normanton area. This means longer journeys and more expensive to school for families who can least afford it. The current government has introduced free schools. Parents need to have a choice about the type of school they send their children to. And I think, you know, we would be wrong to deny that choice to parents. There's quite clearly a demand for Akel Primary School. It has over 500 parents who have shown a keen interest. And in my opinion, I'm asking for support that we should help them as well and help these parents that have requested the support. It's the right thing to do, and I think, you know, we should look at it again. The Department of Education has given approval to the school as well, as you're aware, and you know, I don't know why the current administration, you know, they're not supporting it, and seems like quite a hatred for free schools. The team that's currently engaged with the school are mainly sort of ex-Ofsted inspectors, and most of them are English, and not Sikhs actually behind the school. So there's got quite a cross blend of people already represented on the side. The Gurdwaras in Derby have written a letter to Ed Miliband, hoping that he might convince some of his colleagues in Derby to support the school. The letter was handed over to Chris Williamson, whose reply has been described as arrogant. Councillor Banway, Councillor Hussain did agree to meet representatives of Derby's Sikh Gurdwaras, the representatives of Sikh councils of Great Britain. I am told that this wasn't this was not productive, and Councillor Hussain walked out of the meeting. The Sikh community feel that the current administration has let them down. We looked at sites, and we talked about sites. The sites available within the city. You know, you discuss send school sites with them, but you don't need them all three sites. They just want one site for one school. So I wish, you know, hope that people can support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Nater. Councillor Carr. I didn't hear.
I formally second the motion and reserve my right to speak. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Anybody else like to speak? Councillor Hussain.
Mr. Mayor, I'm totally surprised by Councillor Nater's contribution on this motion. Labour group in the city has shown no hostility to the idea of the Sikh community establishing or wanting to establish a free school. The motion is actually factually inaccurate and totally flawed anyway. I think it would have helped this case if he checked out with the officers who deal with school places whether there is a shortage of school places in Derby. There is no shortage of school places in Derby, and 90% of the children, primary school age children, got their first preference in schools. The plans that we made in 2012, we have actually added additional 2,000 school places since, and we have got plans in place to add to those places in the next coming year. To correct some of the accuracies in the motion, I have an amendment, and could you circulate or bring up the amendment on the slide over there? Mr. Mayor, if I could continue with my amendment. Since 2012, we have actually spent £14 million on increasing or expanding the number of places available to our young children. As a result of that, 17 schools have seen major expansions, including Bemrose School, which was totally built from new. It's the first, it is one of the through schools in the city which offers 315 places. The biggest distortion on Councillor Neta's part has come in terms of what took place when we had representatives from the Sikh community to come to see me and Councillor Banwe. I thought the meeting was held in a cordial, courteous manner, and there was a free exchange of ideas. Clearly, this administration isn't supportive of free schools, but at the same time, we made it quite clear that we're not hostile to Sikh community. If they want to do it off their own back, we will do whatever we can, and we will give them whatever support we can. And he implies that I actually walked out. I had made it clear at the outset that I had another meeting to go to at a certain time. I actually overstayed by about 10-15 minutes, but the discussion was quite engaging and it was going to carry on for quite a bit. So I had to apologize and leave in a courteous manner. And I don't think any insult or anything of that nature was implied. And I don't know whether Councillor Neta is trying to help the members of the Sikh community who are behind this scheme, or whether he's trying to hinder their case, because the presentation he's made here is a total distortion, complete distortion. And those people who are actually sympathetic to, although it might not be my cup of tea, but if there are members of the community who want to test out an idea, and it is after all a legal idea, it's government-backed, and if the government wants to support them and find them a plot of land where they can build, then we've got no problem. But they did seem to suggest that maybe the former Normanton Junior School site, which has been vacant for a number of years, they thought that would be an ideal spot for them to build their school on. The trouble was, some time ago, we decided as a city that we are commissioning SEND education for our children with major disabilities. We are buying places from outside the authority, a number of those places. And there's been concern that some of those places are very, very costly, and they add to our budgetary pressures. So this thinking has been in place for quite some time, that we ought to examine the possibilities of actually establishing more SEND places in Derby. Now, that's not new. That idea has been kicked around for quite some time, because financially that would help us. The difficulty is SEND education actually covers a multitude of disabilities, people with very, very specialized needs, very complex needs. And what we are doing is we're trying to work out which particular specialities we think are viable for us to cater for. Because there is no doubt we will still end up buying places from, because we cannot provide education to all to children with different types of conditions and different types of complexities. But there are some that we can cater for. It's a very complex piece of work. We've got to look at who is placed outside Derby, the kind of conditions that they suffer from, and which particular group will be the best group for us, and then stack up these finances. This is going to be a detailed piece of work which will probably take us good 6 months to complete. And we said, well, we will give you feedback. If you come and see us in 6 months' time, we'll be in a clearer position to give you an indication whether that surplus, whether that site is needed by us, or whether it's surplus to our requirement. And if it is surplus to our requirement, then we can begin to negotiate. In the meantime, our advice to them was, instead of sitting back and waiting for this...
Councillor Hussain, I'm afraid you're out of time. Thank you very much.
Oops. I didn't realise it.
Just one second. Yeah. The amendment is allowed, Councillor Nater, because your statements are factually incorrect, and that is why I will allow the amendment. I'd need somebody, or Councillor Hussain needs somebody to second the amendment. Councillor Repton. Councillor Repton, would you like to speak or reserve your right? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. First of all, I'd like to say that as Conservatives, we do welcome free schools within the city. However, going back to the original motion, and then I will speak on the substantive motion, on the amendment, sorry, we have to be really clear about who is responsible for the purchase of the land, and that is actually up to the Education Funding Agency to get the land, to negotiate the land. That is not a city council job to do. And as local authority councillors and nothing else, we have a duty of care to make sure that the land that we have is used for LA schools. And absolutely there is a shortage of SEN placements and SEN specialised schools within the city. And as I understand it, we have earmarked that land as a local authority education to actually look forward to having SEN placements on that land. So I would say that I have no problem whatsoever with supporting a free school. However, it's not our job as local authority councillors to find the land and to give it away. It's actually our job to make sure that we use it for LA schools or LA provision, and to make sure that if there is shortage of placements within the schools, that we come up with a solution for it, not other schools. What I would say on this motion, the amendment, is unfortunately they've had to politicise it, so I can't say that I would vote in favour of it, because I think it's just put in parts that you don't need to be put in parts. We actually just need to be really clear. We should have said, I'm sorry, what the original motion asked for is not acceptable as a local authority. We can't do it because we have a duty of care to our young children.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just want to correct a couple of things that have been said. We will be voting against this amendment because it doesn't do what the original motion did, and it also focuses attention on particularly on one particular site. Now, the EFA, Councillor Williams is quite right about the EFA, have also expressed an interest in several other sites in the same area, and the City Council is being, not to put too fine a point, obstructive in not allowing them to pursue any of these particular sites. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Anybody else? Okay, can we vote on the amendment? You need... It's okay, I was going to help you count, but we don't need to now. If you could just vote on the amendment as it is. Those in favour? Any against? The amendment's carried. The amendment is now the substantive, and I have one speaker, which is Councillor Banwaite.
Mr Mayor, as in CP 72, I would like my vote to be recorded. Thank you.
And me also, please.
Fine, your votes will be, those of you asked for the vote to be recorded will be. Councillor Banwaite, carry on.
Mr Mayor, Councillor Nader, what a tactical genius. I think if you're a community group out there, for God's sake, don't ask Councillor Nader to put your case for you. He'd actually, as Councillor Hussain said, not only would he give you a few laughs, he would absolutely devastate it for you. Look, this is a serious issue, and I speak as the first leader of the Council of Sikh heritage, and it's my great pride to say that, and I know that the members of the Sikh community in the gallery today, and I welcome them to this Council chamber and these proceedings. As the leader of the Council that met a delegation of promoters of the Sikh Free School, Councillor Hussain is absolutely correct in the feedback and the outcome of that meeting. We made it absolutely clear that we would not
stand in the way of the community to develop this school, but the particular land and the specific land, and it's unfortunate that they have focused in on this one particular piece of land that is not available, and that's a fact. The premise of this motion is completely wrong, and I can't believe that what we've heard, that they can't support the amendment, that is correct, but you want to support a motion that's wrong, that's factually incorrect. It's been advised about that. The premise of your motion is about the solution to you're saying is that there are a lack of primary school places, so therefore a solution is to support this school. Well, the premise has been destroyed completely. That is not facts. Unless you want to reinvent facts, unless you're saying that Andrew Bunyan, a statutory officer of this council that looks after safeguarding in our city, is wrong, please show us the evidence. I don't know what library you're consulting. It must be the Nater School Library. I mean, I've had all sorts of debates with you. Councillor Nater is the same Councillor Nater that wouldn't support our argument for a living wage and then said he would support a £10 living wage, even though the actual living wage is lower than that £10. So Councillor Nater has his own scholars out there and his own school of thought. So that's extraordinary.
Councillor Van Wade, keep to the original.
I will stick to that, Mr Mayor. But in terms of this very serious issue of the promoters from the community that want to establish this school, we make it absolutely clear that in spite of it being the belief of the administration that we believe in state education, that's our policy. We're not standing in the way of any community of establishing this. And to use an example, is the Muslim community several years ago came to the council very similarly and asked for support and assistance, and we said exactly the same thing to them, that we wouldn't stand in their way, but it wasn't something we believed in. And as a result, they were established. Of course, we all know about the issues that were played out in the national press, but they were set up by the government. The reality is, the free school concept has nothing to do with the council. It has absolutely nothing to do with the local authority. The whole principle of the free school agenda by this government is to bypass local authorities. Government thinks that council shouldn't have any control or input. We have no say on the issue. So I would urge the community, the promoters and Councillor Nater, but actually I would say leave Councillor Nater out of it, it'll probably make it worse, but take your arguments back to the Secretary of State, back to the commissioning groups, the government bodies that have been set up. They are the ones solely responsible for finding you the right premises, the right facility, the right land to do that. And finally, Mr Mayor, can I just share my own view as a Sikh? Obviously, I don't have a turban. My father is an Amrit Shah Sikh, but I still consider myself a Sikh. I'm named after one of the greatest, Maharaja Ranjit Singh. But as a Sikh myself, I believe that Sikhs, and hopefully we can all agree, Sikhs are a great people. They're great, courageous people. They have fought in 2 world wars. They have an impressive history of standing up for their beliefs and their religion and their faith. And I hope through that very courage and endeavour that they will establish their school on the lines that they want to. But can I just add my belief and interpretation of Sikhism, and that's personal to me, and I hope I don't offend anybody. But a Sikh child is best served sat in a state school with a Christian child, with a Jewish child, with an atheist child, with a Muslim child. That is the beauty of state education. It's about diversity. I'm sure that Sikhism is not about self-segregation. We've come a long way from when the first black students fought for their civil rights to be enrolled at an all-white university. Please, for God's sake, let's not go backwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Van Wade. I take it there's nobody else that wants to speak. Councillor Carr or Councillor Nater, one of you would like to sum up? Oh, no, I'm not going to sum up. Councillor Nater.
Yeah, I just wanted to find out if our vote was recorded, Mr Mayor. Yeah?
Only Councillor Skelton's vote's been recorded.
Right, would like all our vote recorded, please.
Sorry, Councillor Nater, the time has gone for that to be...
We did say at the time, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Benwade, it's okay. Councillor Nater, if you want the monitoring officer can read you the CP policy on that, but you are too late.
That's what I was just clarifying. If it was possible to do that, we should have.
Well, no, it's not.
Before. Anyway, I'll
Can you just sum up, please?
I think you've just heard words here about we're focusing on one site, and the focus is on many different sites. There is options available. It's just that they choose not to help. That's the bottom line of it. And Councillor Banway, I don't need a lecture of you about Sikhism. Right, I've been around here a bit longer than you have.
Thank you, Councillor Nater. Can we now move to the vote, please? Those in favour of the amendment? Motion as amended, sorry. It's been so long, I forgot what I'm talking about now. Okay, any against? That is now carried. Right. I never thought I'd get to this part, but this is, you'll be pleased to know, the last motion, motion number 6. The bad news is Councillor Dinser. Councillor Dinser.
It's transferred. It's now Councillor Schenker.
Actually, it's quite good news. It's been transferred to Councillor Schenker.
I'll try to be as quick as I can for you, Mr Mayor. Before I start, though, could I please, under CP 53, slightly amend the motion. So on page 6 of the agenda, the first paragraph, part way down, needs a few words adding in just for the sake of accuracy. I've circulated the changes.
That's fine.
Okay. The group leaders, I believe, have all got that and accepted that?
Yeah, that's accepted.
No problem, Councillor Williams. Just before I start, I'd like to add a few words to page 6 of the agenda in the first paragraph. I believe group leaders have been circulated with that and agreed to the change. So thank you for that.
Are you clear on that now, Councillor Williams?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Carry on, Councillor Schenker.
I hope we can all agree on the fact that Derbyshire Constabulary do a very tough job in the city, but do that job extremely well in challenging times, keeping all of us safe in Derby and Derbyshire. Having had £21 million cut from the force's budget since 2010, the Constabulary is now faced with a further massive cut of £23 million over the next 5 years. And remember, this is on the back of being the lowest spending force nationally in terms of spend per head. It's obvious how efficient and professional our force already is. Additional cuts and the ever-changing threats, with 450 less staff now and an additional cut anticipated of another 450 over the coming 4 years, is unbearable. I also hope, as local councillors engaged with residents who we represent, we all know how ridiculous the Home Secretary's claim that these cuts will not have any impact on frontline services is. Crime is not reducing, it's changing. Cybercrime alone cost the Constabulary £7 million last year, and this cost is ever rising. This problem is not just limited to Derby. Nationally, there's now 16,000 fewer police officers and 35,000 fewer people working in policing since 2010. I think it's appropriate here for me just to quote from a press release by the top cop for Derbyshire, Chief Constable Mick Creebden. He said, "The level of cuts that police services is dealing with is totally unprecedented. in my 35 years of service. We have already lost more than 450 officers and staff through the first 4 years of austerity, and we anticipate a similar number over the next 4 years. It is a stark fact that within 4 years, Derbyshire Constabulary will probably be a similar size to it was some 25 to 30 years ago. It's impossible for this not to have an impact on the way we deliver policing to the 1 million people who live in Derbyshire. The type of crime that we are now dealing with is hugely complicated, particularly given the explosion in technology and the fact that virtually all types of crime can now be facilitated using the internet. And that was the words from the top cop. So I hope we can all, following that stark warning, support this motion. And all we're asking for here is to be united in lobbying this out-of-touch government and fight for a fair deal for Derby. Join partner organisations and fight for a fair deal for Derby to make sure the constabulary in Derby and Derbyshire can keep our citizens safe. They have the appropriate funding to do that in a tough environment. All we're asking for is a fair deal to get the appropriate amount of funding. And I hope everybody can support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Shanker. Councillor Afzal.
I formally second the motion, Mr Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Anybody wish to speak on it? No? Okay. Can we move to the vote? Those in favour? Okay, thank you. Those against? That's carried. Thank you. No need to sum it up. No, wait a minute. You haven't been given permission to leave. Well, actually, the formal part of the meeting is concluded. Can I remind members that the meeting provisionally scheduled for 17th of December will not now take place. This will therefore be the last time we're all together before Christmas. So can I take this opportunity to wish you all a joyful and peaceful Christmas, and we will see each other hopefully in the new year. Thank you very much.